OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
All right, it's 7:30. It is Wednesday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. Owen in studio and Nathan on the line. Nathan, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads.
I suppose, Owen, good morning to you too, technically.
Thanks. You too.
Is last night a stay of execution, Nathan? Is that all it is? It's just like an extra long period of time for Liverpool fans, slightly fraying mentality to be stretched that little bit longer? Or is it actually, a little bit of ramping up with the pressure on Manchester City?
I think it's a little bit of both. Certainly a ramping up of the pressure on Manchester City, because if Liverpool slip up again, it is all over without question. But it's just about hanging on now till the end of the season with the last couple of league games for Liverpool. They do look a little bit tired, a little bit of fatigue, but one good win, one good performance, go win the FA Cup final on Saturday. Maybe that spark comes back for those final couple of Premier League games and Liverpool can keep the pressure up. But I thought it was an entertaining game last night. Liverpool weren't at their very best, but I don't really buy into this talk that because they faded in the final 20 minutes against Tottenham and then didn't rip Aston Villa to pieces last night that they're somehow having this massive dip at a crucial time in the season.
Is the question not more so fitness and legs, and when those wins get taken out of your sails a little bit, like they might have done on Saturday night, and this kind of realisation, which must exist, that Manchester City are probably going to win the Premier League, that they sort of realise just how taxing a 63-game season is really going to be?
Well, Manchester City are probably going to win the Premier League unless something remarkable happens. Like, nobody is sitting here expecting City to lose tonight against Wolves, or on Sunday against West Ham, or on the final day of the season against Aston Villa.
Or the draw, really.
But a draw doesn't... But every team drops points at some stage. Now, City may not between now and the end of the season.
Is the goal difference not enough for Liverpool to make up? No?
It is. Sorry, no, but City have to lose even for the goal difference to come into play. So Liverpool are 3 points behind. So City have to lose. So I don't think last night changes a huge amount. I think Liverpool will probably win their final two games of the season. And then it will be, as it always is with Manchester City, a completely unexpected result. It's hard to make a case that they lose any of those games, but Wolves are a much improved side this season. They're very solid at the back. If they get an early goal, it'll be the same scenario on Sunday against Wolves. So it's always a shock if City or Liverpool end up losing a game, and it will come out of nowhere. Nobody will be predicting it, no one will be expecting it, but Liverpool just have to put themselves in a position, if that happens, that they're ready. I do think the goal difference changes the dynamic slightly, because if City were to go and win tonight 4 or 5-0 again, suddenly it's almost impossible for Liverpool to catch up on that goal difference. They could find themselves going into the last couple of games 7-8 goals behind. You have that extra added pressure of having to win, not just win, but win big. So City always have that ability. We've seen it against Leeds and against Newcastle, where they weren't really at their very best in either of them and scored 9 goals. So I think Liverpool just keep winning, just keep going, and hope that somehow Manchester City slip up and you get maybe your grandstand finale on the final day of the season and it's a bit of a shootout.
There's no world where they realise this is gone and decide to maybe start resting their best players, given that the Champions League...
Well, there's no time to rest players. So the cup final is this Saturday. When are you resting players over the final 2 matches of the season? There's a week off between the end of the season and the Champions League.
Is that enough for them to recapture the fizz? So Fabinho out, we don't know how long, right? But it looks like it could be a while. How many more players can they actually afford to lose and consider themselves favourites for the game against Real Madrid?
We've seen constantly with both City and Liverpool, the fizz comes back pretty quickly. And at this stage of the season, it's impossible not to be up for matches. Maybe Real Madrid are in a position where they can rest players. But Manchester City, this time 7 days ago, we're still in the Champions League and we're minutes away from getting a Champions League final. And where was the fizz there? Was it a bit of fatigue that crept in the latter stages of that game? I don't know.
That's very different, isn't it?
Of the Real Madrid game.
But I'm saying is, both these sides have played an enormous
well, Liverpool
games.
literally the every game possible. And so you're saying you think that it's going to take a miracle, really, for City to lose at this stage?
No, I don't think. I think Wolves and West Ham both have the ability to go and beat Manchester City. Both have something to play for because they're both still scrapping it out for Europa League place. But it's always a shock. Does anybody sit down at the beginning of any weekend and say Manchester City are going to lose here? No.
I think Liverpool's best hope is not that they lose those games, but they draw both of them, and there's no sign of that really. Like that would, I think, successive results going haywire at this stage. It just seems like there's a chance that Liverpool try their eye strings out, fall short, and get some injuries over the next 10 days, which they may regret when it comes to the Champions League final.
Or they may rest players and Manchester City end up losing a game and they've put out their second string side.
And they regret it
on
forever.
the assumption that City won't.
And then Real Madrid beat you as well, and it's like, wow, what a crap season that was.
Listen, that could easily happen. That they're playing Chelsea in the FA Cup final, they're playing Real Madrid in the Champions League final, and Manchester City, it's out of their hands. So for all the talk of the quadruple, they could end up with a Carabao Cup.
Would that be a successful season?
I don't think it's in Jurgen Klopp's demeanour. I don't think people will look back and say if you've won trophy in this Carabao Cup, it's a massively successful season. But like, they couldn't have done a huge amount more in any of the competitions. Like, it's still a cup final. Is it? If Manchester City lose tonight, Liverpool win the league, is it a successful season for them?
I think
they don't have a trophy.
I think that if you're a Liverpool fan, this season has been amazing. Ultimately, all you want is to feel alive, and you felt alive from the start of the season to the end of the season. And if they did end up with just a Carabao Cup and everybody was like, team of chokers, can't believe they blew everything, I'd be like, well, that's not really the whole point of sport here.
The whole point of sport is to call people chokers ridiculously, obviously.
Yeah, well, and I think it would be ridiculous at this stage. If Chelsea beat them, it's not a shock. If Real Madrid beat them, it's not a shock. If Man City win the league, it's not a shock. There's definitely a world where they win one trophy, and in years to come, they'll feel like this was a season that got away from them. They could have done things a little bit differently, and they'll always have regrets. But like, they've been amazing this season. Now, they did have a very handy draw through the Champions League, as was pointed out in the show yesterday. Like, they're very, very handy draw. After the group stages, very handy draw, which is very fortunate for them.
Yeah,
teams get handy draws. You still have to go and win them.
I know, but come on, it's been a handy draw. This is a handy Kerry mid-noughties All-Ireland if they pick it up.
But they haven't had handy draws and still gone through. So, what do you want them to do? Actually, are you saying they don't deserve to be in a Champions League final because the draw was too easy?
Very touchy about this, Nathan. My point was that it'll still be
I just don't understand what you're getting with that. They should start resting players between now and the end of the season.
Well, I think the league is gone
because of injuries.
I think the league is gone. That's all. I do. It feels like to everybody, apart from the Liverpool fans, that the league is gone. Right? You think the league is gone?
I think after Tottenham the last day, it's over. Like I do accept though that like West Ham Wolves are two tricky enough fixtures, but this is Manchester City, and like I think the big thing for them is that they got the win on Sunday, and maybe the concern you would have had is after the Real Madrid defeat, would Newcastle United, who'd been really good over the last couple of months, would they cause Manchester City problems? And they didn't cause them a single problem, and that for me is the issue. I think that they've shown that they'll win their last three games. And
that's the brilliance of City. That's the brilliance of City, is the performance against Newcastle, where I was coming out of the ground going, it didn't feel like City played particularly well, yet they've just won 5-0.
I do think if it was a slightly bigger gap, 4 or 5 points, I think maybe that changes the narrative. So, like, I mean, you're not arguing that Liverpool just give up here. I don't think that's...
No, but you're not giving everybody the full...
But he's rotated constantly. Like, that hasn't happened. He's pretty much rotated, and maybe Fabinho was one of the exceptions. But like, Henderson is going to come in, is going to have to play a lot of games, but he has protected Henderson over the last few weeks. Like, he's been giving Milner game time. Tsimikas comes in and starts last night. He's constantly rotated between Matip and Kanate. The front three changes all of the time. So it's not been a solid 11. There's been 3-4 changes every match. And if you are looking at injuries right now, it's Manchester City who've got the problems between now and the end of the season, with the news that Diaz isn't going to play again this season. John Stones isn't going to play. Kyle Walker isn't going to play. So that's 3 of what at the start of the season was their first choice back 4 gone. And absolutely, we could be sitting here in a month's time going, Sadio Mane and Mo Salah pick up a couple of knocks and end up missing a Champions League final, and Liverpool are massively depleted. But it is one player from a squad that going into last night was fully fit. Like, Firmino's back. They had, going into that game, everybody fully fit, ready to go. So they've done remarkably well so far this season, and been fortunate with injuries. Fabinho been out, and it looks, if it's a hamstring, it's he's certainly out the cup final this week. It's going to be very hard to get back in. What are we at? 2.5 weeks for a Champions League final. But I don't think Klopp will change his plans at all.
Is Fabinho one of those players against Real Madrid that actually was key to the whole thing? Look, you can't say that Trent isn't key, or that
Well, he's up there with
Virgil
Trent
isn't.
in that he's one of the two who they maybe don't have a direct replacement for. In that Joe Gomez will come in at right back for Trent, but he's such he's more straightforward, traditional right back, centre back stepping out of position. Whereas Henderson will come in for Fabinho. Listen, Henderson's played that role a lot of times, and generally when Henderson plays, Liverpool don't lose. But Fabinho's been the one, and it's been around him. It's been Thiago, Keita, Henderson, Oxlade, Chamberlain, you name it, comes in. But Fabinho is the one who has that understanding with Van Dijk, with Matip, knows when to step back in. Almost everything goes through him. So he is going to be a massive loss for the Champions League final, in particular. For the Premier League, I'm sure they'll survive. Maybe even on Saturday they can get through it. But for that Champions League final, if he's not there, Liverpool will find themselves in a bit of a spot of bother, because we thought Henderson was going to come in for Keita for the final, whereas now it'll probably be the three of Henderson, Keita and Thiago starting. So of all the players they didn't want to lose, he's very near the top of that list.
Yeah, so there's a chance that maybe we don't see him again until then, and they obviously do the fitness test the day before to give him every single second to try and get back. Well, I guess maybe they'll tell us in advance. But
we got Kian O'Sullivan on the show later on. He said he recovered from a hamstring tear in 2 weeks in 2015. So 2.5 weeks, Cian O'Sullivan's laid down the gauntlet for Fabinho to try and match. But like, even if he's fit for the last day of the season and the gap is 3 points, even if it's 1 point, is that 1 point possible? Yeah, if they lose and Liverpool draw, I think you rest Fabinho if it's a hamstring issue.
I don't think you're taking a risk in the league with Fabinho between now and the end of the season. Even if Manchester City were to lose tonight, I don't think you're taking that much of a risk with a Champions League final to come. But there's no recent history of an English club taking a risk on a player in the Champions League final and it's not working out.
Kenny the Dad says, by the time Liverpool play against City, will have played twice in the league. They will know if it's over or not, so they can make the decision then, which is a fair point. Perfect excuse for the Liverpool fans when they lose to Real, says Richard Redballs, who I suspect is a Man United fan. But I mean, what is your fear level about it being a one trophy season as opposed to the quadruple, which everybody was banging on about incessantly for about 2 months?
My fear level, I don't have any fear of whether it's one trophy or 2 trophies or 4 trophies.
Well, it won't be 4.
Why?
Because Man City are winning the league, Nathan. We know this.
Sure, like,
this is delusional. This is absolutely delusional. Man City are going to win the league. We know this. It's like... Go on.
2 minutes ago, you didn't even know that they needed to lose a game. You thought they only needed to draw a game. So come on.
I was talking about 2 draws. But go on. Anyway, you think that Liverpool are going to win the league?
I haven't. Have you listened to anything I'm saying?
There's no chance. Okay, so it's not going to be 4. It's not going to be 4.
No. Nobody is sitting here saying Manchester City are going to lose a game. So teams lose games you don't expect. Was anybody sitting there with 2 minutes to go in the Champions League semi-final a week ago saying Manchester City are going to lose this game? No, that's what happens.
Okay,
it's football.
that was against Real Madrid. That was against Real Madrid. You're talking about Wolves, whose recent form includes being beaten by Leeds, being beaten by Burnley, being hammered by Brighton, being beaten by Newcastle. You're like, oh, God, come on, you Wolves, you can do me a favour. You can do me a solid. That's one option. Or maybe it's West Ham, who just crashed out against Eintracht Frankfurt and had their best player accusing a referee of corruption. Also including recent results, a draw against Burnley, beaten by Chelsea, beaten by Arsenal. Okay, so they hammered Norwich at the weekend. Maybe there's a green shoots of recovery. There's something there. Anyway.
But that is what I'm saying. You're not going to sit here and say Wolves are going to beat Manchester City.
No, I'm not.
West Ham are going to beat Manchester City.
No, I'm
not.
But
that's not to say that they couldn't.
Okay, you're right.
Hope.
So you're saying there's a chance. What were we actually talking about before that?
I just don't understand what your point is. Like, Newcastle. It's
what's your level of fear that there's only going to be one trophy?
To start if Chris Wood takes that chance, Wood takes that chance, maybe it's a very different game.
If me granny had balls, she'd be my granddad.
Well, exactly.
As we know. So look, or maybe not. Anyway, so if it is a one trophy season, to round this part of the conversation out, Nathan, because we're segueing into the next part of it, which was well signalled about 2 minutes ago. What's your level of fear? 1 trophy versus 3 trophies, let's say. Do you think? I think
it's still a good season. How could it not be?
It just does give fuel to the Twitter football bots where it's like won a EFL Cup in the last couple of seasons for Jurgen Klopp is what people will say. When obviously it is about so much more than that, and as you say, Liverpool fans have got a hell of a season out of the last couple of months. But sometimes things just boil down to statistics if you want to try and clutch at straws of disappointment. And I'm sure plenty of rival fans of Liverpool are going to do that exact thing if it ends up being one trophy at the end of the season.
Okay. Shamrock Rovers versus Derry at Tala on Friday night. Very exciting. It's not quite a title decider. Obviously, it's too early in the season for that. But since we've last spoken on the show, Stephen Bradley has doubled down. He's committed to Rovers, which I think people were surprised by. They thought that maybe the opportunity to join the English football pyramid was going to be an opportunity that was too great for him to turn down. But ultimately, that hasn't been the case. So, what do you expect to happen here?
Well, it's set up beautifully now, and it's all gone very well for Shamrock Rovers since Stephen Bradley decided to stay on, because Derry City at that stage were top of the league. Rovers have won back-to-back games, Friday night and Monday night, and Derry have dropped points in both those matches with successive draws against Bohemians and St. Pat's. So it's Rovers who go into this top of the league, knowing a win will move them 4 points clear, and also knowing that they've got a good run of fixtures coming up. So I think for Derry, it's a must-not-lose game, having just stalled a bit momentum-wise. And it's going to be a cracker. I think it'll be an absolute sellout. It's without question the biggest game of the season. Both sides have been quite inconsistent to start the year. The first half an hour for Shamrock Rovers on Friday night against Finn Harps was probably as good as they played all season. They were 3-0 up, ripping them to pieces. And then the first half against Sligo on Monday night was probably the worst 45 minutes of the season. But they've such depth. They can make triple substitutions, quadruple substitutions at halftime, bring in an enormous quality of player and just turn a game. And that's what happened with Graham Burke, Rory Gaffney. Burke scores a hat-trick. Gaffney's outstanding. So I think it is that depth that people seem to feel with Shamrock Rovers that should see them through this season, even though Derry are improving and coming fast. Like, Rovers are starting games with Graham Burke, Richie Towell among the substitutes, and to be able to look around and know that those two guys are there and can come on, and it does seem nearly always make a difference, is probably what Rovers have. But they haven't been firing on all cylinders just yet this season, and I think that's what makes Friday night interesting. But it's, if you have a chance to go, I think there's still some tickets on sale. Like, this will be as big as it gets in the League of Ireland for the next few months.
It's a bit too early for Derry to be proper toe-to-toe contenders, is it? Like, we expected Derry just to be able to magic in one off-season, maybe not one off-season, but like the investment and the new owner and all that level of excitement. Like, it's actually, it took Rovers time to reach the point where they were guaranteed title contenders every year.
It did, and for them to be there every year is going to take just that. But I think there was an expectation they would be the ones to push Rovers the hardest. I think there was also an expectation that Rovers would kick on with the return of Jack Byrne. But, as I said, consistency hasn't quite been there at the start of the season, so it's allowed Derry to put together a run of results. They had that big victory against Rovers, last-minute goal up in the Brandywell right at the start of the season, which obviously gave them an awful lot of confidence. But they've got a lot of good players. What will be interesting for Derry will be, as you say, that billionaire owner and what happens in the summer transfer window. And if they're close, if they're within 3 points, or maybe even if they're top of the league, do they double down and do they go and try and invest and buy some of the best young players that are at the other clubs around the league and really put it up to Shamrock Rovers this season? Or are they happy actually with some steady progress? They've got a really well-respected young manager in Rory Higgins. I'm not going to say they're going to be happy with second this season, but maybe, like Liverpool, they'll enjoy the journey along the way.
There you go. Yeah.
And they build, and next year then they're ready to really challenge. But listen, if they beat Rovers again, which is certainly possible.
In the statement that Rovers released last week, when Bradley confirmed he was staying at the club, he did say that I have an ambition to manage in other countries. So is this kind of like a one last hurrah season with Stephen Bradley, do you reckon, in terms of like testing out to see how far they can get in Europe, or when will that ambition actually move him away, do you think?
Well, I was listening to Dan on with Joe on the football show, and I think everyone was surprised he stayed in the end, because, like, as we discussed last week, the budget at Lincoln is far greater than Shamrock Rovers. His own personal wage probably would have been far greater than at Shamrock Rovers. And then you're in that English football system, and if it goes well, you can probably stay there for the rest of your life. So I don't think it's a end of this season, middle of next season. I think it's the offer. I think depending on the club that comes in and the package that they can present, that someone will come around that will be more attractive than Lincoln, and the Shamrock Rovers won't be able to turn his head. But the opportunity for for Bradley and why we thought he might go is that like the only way he can really improve his reputation is in Europe, and is by being successful in Europe and going on a run in probably the Europa League qualifiers, because while Shamrock Rovers will be seeded in the first round of the Champions League qualifiers, and they should really go and win that. After that, it becomes incredibly difficult, and you're playing clubs with multi-million pound budgets. So a run in Europe, getting to a group stage of a Europa League, a Conference League, and then playing good quality football. Because remember, that was the thing with Stephen Kenny. It wasn't just getting there; it was when they got there in Europe. Actually, they played this brilliant brand of football that people went, wow, this isn't what we usually expect from Irish teams, to just sit back and hope to nick a goal and qualify, that they actually went and expressed themselves.
A couple of quick ones. Jessica Hannon says, I'm not saying we will win, but to say the league is over clearly means you haven't watched football ever, because literally anything can happen. It's true, Jessica. Literally,
Jer's the type of guy who leaves early.
Literally anything can happen. I've never left early anything in my life.
What about Benfica?
Peter G says, Jer is morphing into a football Twitter bot live on radio. Well, Benfica I had no interest in. Like, it wasn't nothing
There
to
was
do
no
with me.
the beer was unalcoholic.
The beer was not alcoholic. We were on a junket, Nathan. A bit like you at the golf yesterday. How many holes did you play in Mount Juliet, Nathan?
Listen. I got around.
How many holes did you play?
Well, I just played.
You're literally accusing me of leaving early. You played 14 holes. You left early. You're literally accusing me of the thing you just did yesterday.
For work.
Exactly.
For work. To get back.
Well, we went to...
You are an on-air Twitter bot, to be fair. I think that's a very, very good comment. I think
I think we can all agree with that.
I mean, it's an absolutely excellent analysis of Jared this morning.
You didn't read it out, though.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, there's a comment in from Peter G saying Jer is morphing into a football Twitter bot live on radio. Sorry, I thought you'd read it out.
Jer 2375644.
Yeah,
is what his tagline will be.
You chose troll mode.
I mean, look, I'm just asking. Patrick Campbell says, as a Manchester United fan, it would be so fantastic if the best team in history won just the League Cup this year. Stevie G did say it was the greatest Liverpool team of all time, and if they were to get beaten by Real Madrid, Chelsea, and then also not win the league, would that still hold? They might be the most exciting Liverpool team of all time. Maybe the Liverpool team who lost the league final to Michael Thomas, maybe that was more exciting. They gave us one of the greatest moments in football, which obviously doesn't count for most people because it happened before football was invented. OTB, the new TalkSport, Liverpool's season will be judged by the Twitter jury. Eoin, please talk more just to keep Gilroy quiet. It's just annoying at this hour of the morning. Says
I greatly enjoyed it, Dahi, to be quite honest with you. I'm happy listening to this.
Nathan, very quickly, the Saudi golf explosion is happening, and it's happening quickly. The PGA Tour have rejected the application of several of their members to play in the kind of nondescript European swing of the Saudi Tour, which kind of has started the war a little bit earlier than we thought it was going to start. Is that a fair analysis of what's going on?
Yeah, so Centurion Club just outside London, 9th of June is the first event for LIV Golf, which is something when we first heard about it 6 months ago, we thought would probably never come to fruition. But it is happening. This is Greg Norman. This is Saudi-backed money. It is a massive rival to the PGA Tour, but maybe even more importantly right now to the European Tour. And they're trying to get the best players in the world to come play on their tour for money we have never seen before. So it's 25 million for the tournament that's taking place in Centurion next month. Slowly but surely, but they're going about it. You've heard Lee Westwood wants to play, Ian Poulter wants to play, Martin Keimer. And they are looking to get players from the PGA Tour to come over. Now, Greg Norman said 5 of the world's top 50 committed to play. He didn't say who, but it does seem though the top 10 aren't going to come. But there's players like Robert Garrigus, who you wouldn't particularly know. He was outside the top 100 in the world. Who's a PGA Tour journeyman who said he wants to go and play. And the expectation was that anybody from the PGA Tour who wanted to play in the English event would be allowed go because it's not competing on American soil. So on the bylaws of the PGA Tour, they would be fine. But surprisingly, last night, the PGA Tour said we're not giving anybody a release to this because it is a massive threat to the future of the PGA Tour. So it does seem as though there's going to be a legal fight. Greg Norman was talking yesterday, saying that they're already planning an expansion, extra investment of $2 billion, says that he doesn't answer to anybody in Saudi. That they invest in lots of things. They invest in Uber, in Disney. It's a similar relationship here. Yes, they may be the money behind it, but they're not calling the shots. But they go on to say that people don't fully understand how Saudi Arabia is growing the game. That every time he's over there, he sees all the kids in the driving range, and the PGA Tour doing that. Are they really trying to grow the game in the way that Saudi Arabia are trying to grow the game? I'm not quite sure. So it's going to get very messy very quickly. But I do think it's been a very smart game plan from LIV Golf as to how they've gone about this. So somebody is going to walk away with a first prize of around 4 million quid in a month's time. And that player is not going to be someone from the top 10, top 20 in the world,
What?
which will mean all those other players are going to look around and go, wait a second.
Give me the money. Yeah. That's what they're going to say.
I could have rocked up there and won that tournament.
You have to play the full 18 though.
Do we know that there's like a draft for this as well? I'm sure you do, Nathan. Tuesday, the 7th of June, just looking through the tickets online.
So there's a team event, there's a team event, and there is a regular event. So it's going to run across the season. So that's where the draft is, as to how they decide who ends up on every team. It's a different context. It's LIV is 54, so it's a 54-hole event. They're also, and this is where I'm sure you'd be interested, Ger, the premium side of it, right? So one of the things that have been criticised when they're talking about growing the game, the ticket prices are twice what you'd pay for the other events in England, more than you'd pay to get to the Open. I think it's 30 quid to get into the Irish Open down in Mount Juliet. It's 80 quid to get into this tournament. Or you can get, and I'll leave you on this, Club 54 Premium 2-Day, which sounds like a Gilroy type couple of days away in London. So you get admission to LIV Golf London to witness the remarkable golf action for the weekend. Club 54 to 18th green access, the ultimate climate-controlled venue, all-inclusive superior dining options and top-shelf open bar. You get range access. You get reserved seating at select greens. You get to walk inside the ropes. So walk up to 9 holes with players and their caddies, hear the strategic decisions firsthand, celebrate the winning shots, and get closer to the action than ever before. Now, this is a one-time per person unassigned tournament day, which means if you think you're going to be walking down with Ian Poulter and you get Robert Garrigus, you're probably going to be a bit peeved. You get front row to trophy presentation, an exclusive Q&A with Greg Norman, and you get a premium gifting suite where you can select from a curated selection of premium gifts. Just and most importantly of all, which we do all like, private restrooms.
Wow.
There you go.
How much do you think all that's going to cost you?
$2,000. 10 grand.
10 grand.
OTB are suddenly media partners of LIV Golf.
Yeah, exactly. No, Golf Weekly are suddenly.
Sorry, Golf Weekly,
There
yes.
you go. Nathan, good stuff. You came, you saw, yeah.
Well done, Ger.
Thanks very much. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish your day. Now, you've all seen how angry Nathan got about the possible suggestion that everyone might not win every trophy that they're in for the rest of the season. Imagine how annoyed he would be if we were actually talking about Mayo football and the ills that have been visited on Mayo down the years by Dublin and Kerry in particular. You can see it in person if you go to the live recording of the football pod with Paddy and Andy, which is taking place in the Royal Theatre in Castlebar, 6:30 on Thursday, the 2nd of June. I'm looking forward to the question and answer and the saltiness in the crowd. If that's how salty Nathan gets about, I've got no emotional investment in this. They're not my team.
Yeah. I have kept the receipt of you comparing Liverpool's run through the Champions League to Kerry in the 2000s, but we can come back to that later if you want.
Coming up next, we're going to be joined by Eimear and Ailish Considine. First, though, here's the Athletic football journalist Sam Lee on last night's show explaining why Erling Haaland chose Man City over their European rivals.
He had options and lots of them. Why do you think he picked City?
I think Guardiola, big reason during the talks. I think Guardiola would be a big reason anyway. You look at what they've won over the last few years. Barcelona, for example, I don't think Barcelona were in the picture, but kind of up and down. Real Madrid going very well at the minute. They've won the league and they're there as well. They were the main competition. I don't know. I just think City. It's a great footballing project. You get paid a lot of money. Probably not as much as you could get at United, actually, in terms of the wages. I think they've got a lot of players on a lot of money, whereas maybe United have got a bit more of a mix, but they've got some players on staggering money that's probably being wasted at United. The sporting project's there. I think with Real Madrid, City knew that he would like to go to Real Madrid at some point, maybe even now. I think, there's a bit of a sliding doors moment there with them wanting to get Mbappe, and Benzema's got another year left on his contract. So there's part of it is, the Madrid door was partially closed, but at the same time, by all accounts, very keen to move to City. He's hardly going kicking and screaming. And for Guardiola, the promise of trophies, the promise as well of playing good football. There's a lot of clubs you can go to and it not work out. I'm sure he'd back himself. I'm sure any player would back himself, especially going to Real Madrid. That you'll fit in and you'll score loads of goals and you'll thrive, but not always the case. I know at Man City there's a couple of examples maybe where it hasn't worked out as well as expected or as well as hoped, but they're normally the exceptions that prove the rule. The vast majority have gone there they've thrived under Guardiola, and I'm sure that was a big pull as well.
It's 8 o'clock this morning. That's Sam Lee from The Athletic. Now, speaking to us are Ireland Rugby International Eimear Considine and AFLW player Ailish Considine, who've both teamed up with Rugby Players Ireland, Zurich and the Zurich Foundation and on the Tackle Your Feelings Schools programme. Eimear and Ailish star in 2 new videos to discuss the advice that they wish they could give their younger selves, the importance of being kind to yourself in the age of social media, and what they've learned from each other. Delighted to be joined by both of them now. Ailish, I might start with you. Can you give us a sneak preview of what your advice to your younger self might be?
Well, it's pretty much just not be so hard on myself, because I guess as athletes it's probably something that we do anyway. We are pretty hard on ourselves in general, but I think struggling with not being selected in my younger years of sport, and been super hard on myself for not doing that, and achieving as best I could. I think just been a bit kinder and having a bit more patience in terms of towards myself and that side of things. And even now, sometimes I need that advice. After taking up AFL in the past couple of years, I still need that advice to be kind and patient on myself.
How does that tally with then I presume the real determination to constantly get better and to try and push yourself?
Yeah, I guess I've always had that drive to, probably because I know the capabilities are there, and sometimes I can fall into the lazy category. So I think having that drive and that will to be better, and knowing that I can be better, and I've always had Eimear to look up to and strive for better things. So I've been quite lucky to have her, throughout my entire career. I've always had someone to look up to, and she's always been, a superstar in her age category and beyond. So, I've been quite lucky to have someone to strive to be better towards, and just been lucky to have that drive.
Eimear, what was if you could tap yourself on the shoulder, first off, what age would you tap yourself on the shoulder that you think would be the most important to go back to and say, okay, this is a little bit that's going to be very useful to you if you just bear this in mind over the next while?
God, I think it was those teenage years. They're a nightmare. Like, I see it every day in school. And I think I was constantly comparing myself to other people and wanting to be other people, wanting to be the ones that were, going out, wanting to be the ones that were doing this and the other. And I'm like, we weren't doing those kind of things. And I was still playing football, and I was delighted that I was, but I always wanted more, and I compared myself to others and wanted to be more like other people instead of actually just being happy with what I am. And I spoke about it in the Tackle Your Feelings video, but there's more Mam sticking to her morals more than me sticking to my morals. I'd say if I had my way, I probably wouldn't be on this path. She kept us on the straight and narrow, and that was mainly through sport. And
I was going to say how, because that's the bit of information that, like, every parent listening in, their ears are pricking up, going, "Okay, how does that work? What did your mum do?"
It was sport. It was always used as the kind of the pro and con of everything. If you didn't do well enough in an exam, you were going to probably get punished by not going to a game or not going to a training session. Or when people were going out to the cinema on a Friday night, we were being chauffeured to a camogie training or football training. And if it wasn't camogie and football, she signed us up to athletics. And then when the athletics was on off season, it was joining the volleyball team and soccer team over in Connolly Celtic. We honestly, I don't think there was a day of the week free, no matter what sport we did. And it was keeping us in sport and keeping us dedicated to that our mind was solely focused on being good athletes, as opposed to, going out or getting up to mischief or getting up to trouble.
So that obviously worked, Eimear. Like, do you think it would have worked if you weren't good sports people and actually proficient and knew that you guys could?
Yeah, what if you were crap? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
What if you weren't two superstars?
Ailish talks about how I was just brought along to school camps because Ailish wanted to go. She was always the sporty one, and I was the one who wanted to be doing my hair and playing with Barbies and all that stuff. I was forced along, and it just kind of, I suppose, if you throw enough at the wall, it's going to stick. And it was me. I had to go along, and we were thrown into enough sports. And like I always say, how I've spoken before about this, how the variety of sports that we did allowed us to be where we are right now. And it was down to Mam just filling every day with a different sport or a different hobby.
I mean, you're definitely the perfect model for like a PhD long form study into playing different sports at different stages of your lives, because you're both excelling at different sports right now. So Ailish, what do you put down your abilities to cross sports down to?
I certainly think it's like what Eimear said, that the multiple sports that we played, even as like kids when we were just outside the back in the middle of the countryside where we live, and like we literally would pick up everything and anything. If it was a stick, if it was a ball, whatever shape, size it was, we just literally picked it up and played it. And I think having that variety of sport and skill set from such a young age was something that definitely helped my skill set a whole lot. And then obviously dragging Eimear along, it helped her too. So and like Mam signing us up to every single sport under the sun, whether that was athletics, basketball, volleyball, soccer, football, camogie, whatever we could get our hands on, even baseball, anything. It was kind of just whatever we could get our hands on, we played. And I think that was a massive thing for us to pick up different skill sets, understand different games, and probably then excel and specialise once we got a little bit older and when it became too hard logistically to keep up all the sports.
We have an older brother who's 9 years older than us, and he got 2 younger sisters. So we were just going outside kicking with him, and he was so much older than us that like he used to belt the balls with us to try and make us catch them. So he has something to do with it as well. But like I think living in the countryside,
for sure,
having each other and not having much else to do, like we're there's no one around us. You can't walk anywhere. There's no footpaths. So we just had to entertain ourselves through. Like we honestly had paint cans. Paint cans and a plank of wood was our hurdles.
Yeah. And we had go-karts and rollerblades, used to race around the house, and we literally had everything that we could to try and keep ourselves entertained and active.
So where is the baseball stronghold in County Clare?
That was because our dad he worked in America for years, so every time he used to come home, they used to bring us home something American, and he'd land home with a baseball bat and a mitt and a baseball, and we'd throw our hand at everything and anything. The amount of slithers that we would use and baseball that we lost in the fields in the countryside, we'd probably still find some now if we went looking, but I wouldn't say it's a stronghold, but we gave it a go.
Eimear, you talked about seeing it in school. Like, it's obviously completely different now in terms of if you were kids, the chances are you'd be spending larger portions of your day on screens. How do we somehow counteract the power, the magnetic power of social media, which is this kind of very addictive thing that people spend time on, and then also it can be a great thing in terms of information sharing and discovery of the world, but it can also be pretty horrific. I suspect if you're a teenager who is in any way self-conscious, like there's just a violent viciousness to the content that's being posted. So what's your understanding of how that's going at the moment, particularly for the kids that you're seeing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, like I spoke about comparing myself to others back in my day, but it's so much harder now because you're not just comparing yourselves to the girls that are in your school, you're comparing yourselves to the world, and everything is so available at the click of a button. But I think it's education, and the main thing that we try and do, on Cyber Safety Week, or we get people to come in and have talks with them, is just, I suppose, education around, that this isn't real, as in like social media is a highlight reel of someone's life, and people don't put stuff up on the bad days, people don't put stuff up when they don't want to. So I suppose it's just educating them that this is the perfect life and that not everything is going to be perfect. It's hard. Like we're all on our phones 24/7, like myself included. And I suppose you just have to go back and take a step back and realize that not everything is posted up there, and everything that is up there might not be true either. So it's education, but it is, like you said, it's a tough place to be. But I suppose find something that you enjoy that can take your mind away from social media. For us, it probably would have been sport, and I still think sport has a huge part to play in that.
Do we do enough? Like, because education, right, you're talking about leaving it really to teachers, but ultimately that's not going to be enough. Like, you say you're on your phone, I'm constantly on my phone. My kids are giving out to me about being on the phone the whole time, and I'm like, oh, you can't have screens. But like, it's complete hypocrisy, because they will do what they see as opposed to what I tell them to do. So what do we need to do? Like, do we need to have a massive public campaign where sporting organisations, media organisations, everybody's actually genuinely addressing this problem? Because I think we probably haven't quite understood just how far-reaching the consequences are going to be.
Yeah, I suppose we don't know the impact it's going to have on the younger generations. We didn't get phones until later in life, but I suppose it's everything though. Like it's not just social media. It's that I want to calculate a test score, I use my calculator on my phone. I want to look up the weather, check my phone. It's just it's so easily accessible at the moment. It's our everything, and I don't know the answer to that. I honestly don't know how you do. I know in the past I've set screen time limits, and you get a notification, and then you're made aware of just how long you spend on social media. I suppose maybe making yourself more aware and putting limits on your amount of time spent on your phone. But it's so readily accessible and everything is so easily accessible. I think that's the hard part, and I don't have the answers. And if you do, let me know.
Ailish, can we talk a little bit about the AFLW? There's stories in the back of the papers today about uncertainty around when the season is going to start. Do you have any inkling or any sense of what the outcome of this is going to be?
Not an idea, unfortunately, at the moment. We're still pretty much in the dark in terms of a start date, contracts. So literally, while you've seen there's been quite a bit of trade and movement, and between the new clubs and stuff, none of that's signed, sealed, delivered. That's only it's only verbal agreements, because we don't actually have a contract to go on. So unfortunately, we were told by the AFL a couple of probably months at this stage that probably early in this year that the season was predicted to change to for an August start date, which means pre-season start date in June. But unfortunately, we haven't had any information beyond that, and we're currently still waiting to hear the negotiations between the AFL Players Association and the AFL in terms of the contract bargaining agreement, which expired this season for us and for the men's. So, we're literally just waiting and seeing what happens.
Everybody's in a sense of limbo at the moment then, and is your sense from kind of being down there that people who have got the Australia experience will, if it comes down to it, pick Australia over coming back and playing inter-county football or whatever they're playing at home? Or do you think that it might be a bit more of a split than that?
I think it might have to come to that. I think there will have to be a decision made, and I think the girls that are out here currently giving it a crack, may pursue a more longer term career in AFL, because it is getting more and more professional each year that we go, because they are looking towards getting this competition fully professional between 5 and 6 years. So I think with the time frame change and how that's going to affect playing Gaelic football when we go home and that side of things, it's going to make girls make the decision to either choose, an amateur game back home, or, take the leap and go fully professional out here playing AFL. So I think, unfortunately, we've had a good ride for the past couple of years in terms of having the best of both worlds, been able to go back and play championship and then come back out and play. But I think, as the competition grows and expands, and the talent pool becomes bigger and bigger, it's going to be a tougher decision for the Irish girls back home, and also, the ones that are here too. Yeah,
and exactly, and all the sort of people who've gone to Australia have also got the proper sample of what life is like down there, whereas those people who make the decision at home kind of are in a blissful sense of ignorance, where they can stay at home and say the grass isn't always greener, whereas you've probably experienced just exactly how green it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the setup over here is amazing, and it's exactly what you want Gaelic football to be back home. And having seen both sides of the world and both sides of the games, they're very, very different. Like, Gaelic football is not quite at the level, and understandably, because it's not professional, but it's hard to go backwards when you're constantly going forwards in another code. So yes, it is extremely hard to go back to a different level when your own personal standards don't change.
Is this something that we could maybe learn from and embrace? Because it certainly seems as if the men's game was always very suspicious of the best young talent being hoovered up by Australia, and then some of them make it, some of them don't, and there's this kind of like, don't let them come over and take our best players. Whereas maybe the women's game can use this as an injection of players who go for a couple of years, have an incredible life experience, and then come back and bring the learnings with them.
Exactly, it's only going to be good for the game, and to be honest, it's actually a credit to the LGFA and the Camogie Association for any of the girls that play Camogie too. To produce the athletes that they've produced, that were pretty much ready made to step into a semi-pro game straight off the bat, having no experience. So, it's an absolute credit to them. But I think the learnings that we'll take back from a professional setup, even, getting a snippet of the men's side of things, from within the club, and just experiencing the professional side of things when you're within season, it's a whole other world. Like, you fly from game to game rather than get a 5-hour bus trip. It's such a different experience, and I think, of course, anything that we learn over here we're going to bring back home and expect standards to be better. And I think that's the only way things are going to get better back home for women in sport, whether that's rugby, soccer, football, whatever that may be. So I think girls are only going to bring home valuable experience and life experience, and that can only be a good thing.
Eimear, it's ironic that rugby, which is a professional sport for the last 25 years, is in Ireland still in that scenario that's very similar to the GAA, where most of the team who played for Ireland in the Six Nations all had to go back to work and do day jobs, apart from the Sevens team. So in your view, at some point in the future, are we going to get to a point where the women's team in Ireland is fully contracted and there's enough strength and depth so that players aren't forced to go off and go back to work the week after big Six Nations games?
Yeah, like I think there's been so many talks, so many conversations about it. And like Ailish said, if it's going that way in the next few years, I don't see it happening overnight. I see lots of other unions' models been taken into consideration, a lot of talks, a lot of discussions. This isn't going to be just made, tomorrow. But it has to go that way. If we're to compete with the likes of France and England, it's essentially a two-tier competition at the moment with the Six Nations, that you have your France and England's, and even at that, England, we're so far ahead of France the last day that it's scary. The gap that's there. There's almost 3 divisions now. I think in the past I would have thought it was France and England up there themselves, and then the rest. And now it's almost England first, and France behind them, still trying to catch up, and then the rest of us. And I think until we go professional, like you said, it's the depth of players that we need, the players training together in and out. That when players go away, when players get injured, that it's a seamless transition, and that's what it was with England when they lost players. People go down injured, they were able to rotate their squad around an awful amount this Six Nations, and it was seamless because they'd been so used to playing with each other day in, day out. It's their full-time jobs, and it's the recovery side of things. Like we all saw even Mac's tweet on the Monday after that game. I was after getting a scan on the Monday and I was back into work on the Tuesday on my knee. It's the reality of it is you get more recovery, you get more rehab, you get more physio attention if you're a full-time athlete and you don't have to go into work the next day. But it is, like Aoife tweeted, a reality of everyone that plays rugby in Ireland, if you aren't a student or if you aren't a Sevens player. And I suppose it's just the reality that we've had to have for the last few years, but it can only benefit the women's game, whatever sport it is. Like as Ailish said, whatever sport it is, professionalism will benefit us.
It's a vicious cycle as well. I presume being in work the full week before a game makes you more susceptible to injury on top of that.
Do you know what? There's pros and cons. Like I love going into work because it means you're not focusing on the match. You can literally just focus on the task in hand and whatever you are, whatever you're teaching, whatever class you have at the time. And then you can switch on when you get into game mode, because when you are in game mode, you're in on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and it's meetings, it's tactics, it's footage, it's gyms, it's double day training sessions. So you are fully in. It's very intense when you are in there. So to actually be able to switch off and go back to work, it actually has positives, and I really find that beneficial. So look, there's obviously benefits to being fully pro, not having to go to work and getting off your feet, recovering, getting more rest, getting more sleep. But then with the switch off side of things, I feel like I'd be constantly thinking about rugby if I didn't have my job. So I like the mix at the moment. It's just interesting to see what will happen in the future.
The whole move to professionalism, if it does take a number of years, Eimear, might be a little bit too late for you, or is there a possibility that maybe you could take a career break if the game goes fully professional? Would that still be something that's on your radar?
Yeah, like every athlete dreams to be a professional athlete. Like Ailish is one of the lucky few in Ireland that gets to be a professional athlete, and it's something that as a girl growing up we could never have imagined. Yeah, like you said, I am myself and Connor bringing up the age group of the age bracket of the group. We joke about that quite a lot. But look, I'll see it as long as I'm still enjoying my rugby. If I still think I'm good enough to be playing rugby, like I'll see. I've made no decisions around that, and hopefully it happens sooner rather than later, so that I do have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I guess over the next little while then as well, there's probably, I guess, the conversation about how that gap actually closes, and like beyond the professional point, Eimear, what would you take away from this year's Six Nations as, I guess, the thing that you can build on ahead of next year and over the next couple of years?
I think if you look at the season and the amount of games that we've played this year, that has been so valuable. Like myself as a player, I've played more games this year than I have ever. And that's because of the structure of the way the AIL was structured, the way, obviously we had the World Cup qualifiers as well, but when the World Cup qualifiers were going on, there was the Women's Interpros. So there was a significant amount of games this season, and we were released back to play to our clubs instead of training or doing camps for Ireland. So the experience you get is invaluable playing games. And you can train, and yes, it's important to gel as a squad, but it's also really important to get that match experience. And like I'm like Ailish, I'm like a lot of the girls, I transferred over from another sport, so I'm still learning. I haven't played since I was 12, 13, 14. I took it up at 23, so I'm still learning, and I need those quality games. And a lot of the times in the past, I would have learned things or done things for the first time in an international game. So to be able to do that in a club game and to do those experiences in a club game, and the way they structured the AIL this year with the two conferences, so after Christmas they divided into a top 4 and a bottom 4, and that really improved the standard of the game after Christmas heading into the Six Nations. So I really, really enjoyed that.
All right, Eimear, Ailish, thanks a million for your time this morning.
Cheers, thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
And Ailish Considine there on the line with Rugby Players Ireland, Zurich, and the Zurich Foundation, talking about the Tackle Your Feelings Schools programme. It is 20 minutes past 8 on this Wednesday morning. You're with us here on OTB AM. Up next, we're chatting to Matt Williams to preview this weekend's Champions Cup semi-finals. See you in a few.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here is where it all starts. From the little ones learning to the high-performance athletes leading. Here we go to play, to practice, to progress. Here is where communities in the nation come together to compete, to win, and to belong. Here we go to the next level, then on to the world stage. This is Sport Ireland Campus, and here we go. Visit sportirelandcampus.ie to be a part of it.
Off the ball's the best, number one.
It's the GOAT of sports apps.
Talk about the greatest of all time. Nathan, you know Big Joe. Big Joe's the greatest of all time. He's the GOAT. We know it.
So
every single time. Yes. Yes.
It's tough going. It's tough for my ego. I'm going to say I'm the Djokovic of this scenario.
I love it. Love it.
This is OTB Sports Radio. Download the OTB Sports app now.
Paddy. I go, what? He goes, Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James House. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GAA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 22 minutes past 8. You're very welcome back to OTB AM. I'm delighted to say Matt Williams is with us to talk about the rugby. Matt, how are you getting on?
Hey, Joe, very good, mate. How's yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. We'll talk about Leinster in a moment. Just a quick few final thoughts on the European campaign from Munster's perspective. Did a lot of praise for Munster around, rightly so. They ran one of the best teams in world rugby to penalties, and it's heartbreaking for them to go out. So a lot of people are hoping that this is the start of something new, a kind of rebirth, certainly a relationship between the fans and the team and all that kind of stuff. The one caveat to that is that we have seen brilliant one-off performances from Munster in Europe, and it hasn't actually been the harbinger of a new way or a new season or a new level of success. They've been kind of peaks as opposed to consistency. What's your instinct about what we're going through at the moment with Munster?
Rugby is a very sport in general, as you know, it's a very emotional game, and the connection between a rugby team and their community is hugely emotional, and Munster's probably the place in the world where I've witnessed it to be the strongest, that emotional connection. And I think a lot of the reaction has been emotional. Let me also say I have huge respect for what Munster did. I thought they were incredibly brave. Their work at the breakdown, putting their bodies on the line, 15 turnovers compared to 6. Peter O'Mahony was truly inspirational. Now, but I've got to add, they were tactically appalling. They should have won that game going out. Toulouse lost 2 backs. They only had 2 backs on the bench. They had a 6-2 split on the bench, 6 forwards, 2 backs, and they lost 2 wingers. So at times, even in the last scrum of the game, Toulouse were really exposed at outside centre. And even though Chris Farrell had gone through at outside centre before and put Haley over, that was the only time. That's the first 5 minutes of the second half. So there's almost another hour of rugby coming up. That's the only time they went at them. They kicked the ball away 71 or 72% of the time. Like, that was disastrous. Forget the penalty shootout. It should never have got the penalty shootout. Munster should have won that game. Toulouse were on the racks. Look, I think there's still huge weaknesses in Munster's attack. And you've got to also say Toulouse completely unpicked Munster's set play defence. They scored a set play scrum and they scored a set play line-out tries. Now, that's unheard of. Then Munster scored 0 metres going forward with the maul and their scrum was in trouble. Look, I think you've got to be... And I know the Munster supporters are going, oh, Matt Williams, you're Leinster and all this, shut up. Look, I do think you've just got to be really honest. I thought it was hugely brave. I thought Munster should have won, but I also thought there were massive, massive problems that were exposed there by Toulouse. And here is the plus for Munster. Despite all of that, despite all of those negatives, most other teams would have been beaten by 20 or 30 points by Toulouse, and Munster weren't. Munster have what other teams don't have. They understand Europe and they have the courage and commitment that requires to win in Europe. That's the basis of getting ahead in Europe, and a lot of clubs don't have that. You saw Leicester don't have it. Munster have it, but they're still a long, long way off technically and tactically and personnel-wise.
Right, that's interesting. So, because I was just about to ask just until that last couple of words about the personnel at Munster, that do they have the personnel that they're just being coached the wrong way, but you think that it's the tactical approach as well as some of the players that they fielded on Saturday?
Oh, look, I just think if we're talking about the long run, I thought that, I'm not taking anything away from Munster players out there. There's two separate issues here. There's the courage and commitment and the incredible admiration that all of us have for what Munster put in on Saturday. And then you're asking me about the long-term future. They're separate issues. The long-term future is Conor Murray and Peter O'Mahony are coming to the end. They are brilliant, brilliant rugby players. Peter O'Mahony was immense. But they're coming to the end of their careers, and that's no one's fault. That's just a reality. They're losing Dialonde. They have... And you've got to say Keith Earls is knocking towards the end of his career. So there's 3 all-time Munster greats coming to the end. They've got to be replaced. Casey's a good player. They've got some good back rowers. Their problem comes around 10, 12, 13. They don't have an axis there that has produced any penetration or any success against great teams. Some of that is tactics, in my opinion, as I just said about their inability or their on-field choice to not attack Toulouse at the outside centre position where they have been vulnerable. This goes back 2 years. When Munster lost to Toulouse at Thomond Park last year, in the first half, Dialonde absolutely ran over Zach Holmes, who was playing 13. He was a 10 who was playing 13. In the first half, he made his life a misery. Second half, they stopped doing it and they lost. If they had kept doing it, they would have won. So there are on-field tactical and technical decisions being made that are poor. And I don't see, while we see some great young Munster back rowers and second rowers and forwards coming through, Craig Casey's a plus, we're not seeing those 3 quarters. That's where they desperately need it. And you've got to also say their scrum is really in trouble. So they've got to fix those problems because that what they're doing gets them to this level every year. They're getting around the quarters to semis every year because they're Munster, because they get it, because they understand it, that connection. But to take those next steps, that's really hard, and they're not there yet.
Maybe, they have a giant South African second row to come back into the team. That will help a little bit with the power of the forwards, and we'll see what Mike Prendergast can do. Somebody who understands the history and tradition, and when they're falling back on that history and tradition of kicking, he's trying to break them out of that by saying, I am of you. I know exactly why you're doing that, but let's not do it anymore. Let's do something different. So hopefully Mike Prendergast can be the kind of catalyst for that change, and the next coaching ticket can improve things a bit.
Joe, can I just put a really big cautionary note in on what you're saying there? Mike Prendergast is a great signing. Months and months ago, I was talking to Alan Quinlan. As soon as I heard that Coach Van Graan was going, I said to Alan Quinlan, is Mike Prendergast coming back? That's who they need. He's a great, he's really done his yards over in France. He's been away for a decade. He understands a big picture. He'll be great. And he's a wonderful signing. This is not... We've got to stop laying this at the feet of the coach. We've got to stop. This is what Munster have done for years. Let's think of the number of coaches that we've said this about at Munster. It's more than a handful, more than 5 now, and that's an error that Munster are doing. This sits with player talent and player on-field decision making, and we've got to stop talking about the Munster crowd. The Munster crowd are incredible. That was amazing, pumping out the cranberries. I was sitting in my lounge room here in Fresco. That is just, I was laughing and I was singing alongside. That's just fantastic. That's not going to win it. That's not going to win it. That's not going to change much. It's brilliant. It's sensational. They got to have talent in their players that can go out in the field and put into place what the coaches had. You could see Coach Van Graan after the game. He was distraught. His dream was over. I get it. I've been there. I've really felt for him. But this is not about coaches at Munster. Of course, coaches are super important, but it's about the talent of the players and the decision-making on the field that has been wanting. And until that is changed, we're going to keep talking about the same things. But they've got to front up to it. They've got to stop coming back and saying, oh, we got the supporters, we got this. They have, but they haven't got the talent and decision-making on the field. And that's what wins Europe.
Brian O'Driscoll was talking to us last Friday saying Leinster need to win it now. This is it, right? There's like that. Whatever previous years have been issues, and there was a bit of an excuse in that COVID had robbed them of the points that they would have got against Montpellier, and so therefore it was an away quarter-final, which was not really fair considering how well they played in every game. But they're over that now, and there's literally no more excuses for them. They have the full deck to deal with, and it's an Ireland deck, and so it's Ireland in the European Cup semi-final against Toulouse. So it's not now or never, but it's definitely now, right? They have to win it this year.
If you think Toulouse have won it more than anyone else, they've got 5 stars. The competition's been going for 25 years. You don't win this competition every year, right? It's too hard. It is a super hard competition to win. And to win it, the stars have got to align. You've got to have everything in a row. And sometimes that's a good draw, a bad draw, you don't win it. Injuries, all that sort of stuff. Leinster are in a really good position. There's a couple of parts to this. First of all, they have performed so brilliantly in the United Rugby Championship that about a month ago, or maybe more, probably 6-7 weeks ago, Leo could see this and his staff, and they planned to withdraw their players from the last 2 matches. And Leo was always invested in his youth and believed in his youth and just said, no, we'll get losing bonus points. We'll go down and get something down there. And he took his kids away, left his European team at home with Stuart Lancaster, and was brave enough to say, we'll still finish first by doing that. And that's brilliant planning. So my point is, Leinster have brilliant off-field planning at the moment. They've let their players at home. Here's the other part. With 2 weeks break, Leinster were rusty at Walford Road. If you're a Leinster supporter, that should be music to your ears. They were rusty. They are going to be a lot better this week than they were last week. And their aim is to peak at the final. I bet you won't see any of these final players in next week's game, playing any other games. There won't be any. They don't have to worry about it. That's what I'm getting at there. Their planning is so good. They don't have to worry about the week between. They will go if they win on Saturday, they will go and peak. And that's their plan. Leo knows this is, the stars have aligned for this year. They haven't drawn an away semi-final like they did last year, and they haven't got Saracens at their peak like they did 2 years ago. Toulouse are a little bit wounded. They've got some injuries. Certainly the papers here, they reckon there's 3 players in doubt and their backs. So I think Toulouse are a little bit weak. And they played La Rochelle in the top 14, then they played Munster, and now they've got Leinster away, 2 away games at the Aviva. That is difficult. So yes, I agree with you, Jer. The stars are aligning. It's not now or never, but it is now.
I still am a little bit haunted by the time Toulouse came over with what was apparently a rubbish team, and the ball bobbled off the top of the post and bounced down, and they were 2 tries up after about 8 minutes. And you're like, what the hell happened here? And I think Leinster still won that game, but there was definitely this is not the straightforward thing that we thought it was going to be. And it's also a French team which has two of the most mesmeric, talented 9 and 10 we've ever seen. Like, they're literally as good as anything that's ever happened in world rugby. Now, they're not at the peak of their form just at the moment, and they're looking a little bit human when you get at them. But there's just enough for us to think this is not the gimme that the bookmakers would have you believe.
It's certainly not. Certainly not. I think Munster deserve a lot of credit in how they bottled up Antoine Dupont. And just for your listeners there, great attacking players change defensive systems. So the slide defence came in because of the great Mark Eller in the 1980s. 20 years ago, George Gregan and Matt Dawson were running from scrum half. They were great scrum halves of the past, just like Dupont is. So defence changed to stop George Gregan and Matt Dawson by the first arriving defenders, 1, 2 and 3, not moving. They just got there and stayed in position and came forward. That changed over the years because what happened, the defence made scrum half just pass. Dupont's come back to running. And he was picking up, because the defence was moving out at 1, 2 and 3, that's where he was making his breaks. Munster put their 1, 2 and 3 defender and they didn't move. They just came forward. They shut down Dupont. Take my hat off to them. It's great. But this is where people say, oh, it's modern. The defence that Munster used was what we were coaching 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So it's not whether it's old school, new school. That's crap. What's effective? That was a defensive system of 20 years ago, and it was effective. Leinster will have gone to school on that. Still, here's how brilliant Dupont was. With a minute to go, Dupont kicked the ball dead. Deliberately kicked the ball dead. What does that mean? There's a scrum where he kicked it. It was kickable. And Toulouse scrummaged Munster off the mark. Referee Pearce didn't give a penalty, and he should have. That's his genius. He deliberately kicked the ball dead in the heat of battle, knowing he'd give away a scrum with a minute to go to get a shot at penalty. That's a genius player. Like, that's how great he is. But you're right. Toulouse are wounded. Leinster are well rested. They have everyone in. They've just had a great away game. They've got a phenomenal record at the Aviva. So, but Toulouse, you don't have Toulouse beaten till you're singing the song back in the change room. They're a great club, great history, and they win games. Ron O'Gara said it the other week. They just find a way to win games when they can't. And this will be another week where they shouldn't win, but they shouldn't have won last week either. So there's no way Leinster or anyone will be writing them off. Do you have any concerns about the second half performance against Leicester, or was that just how sport goes? The team is 20 points up. That game was definitely over at half time. There was no way that Leicester team were going to score 20 points, and there was no way that Leinster weren't going to score in the second half. So is that just the ebb and flow of a match, or was there stuff that you were like, oh, hang on a second here? No, I what I was worried about, I actually thought they would struggle in the second half. I had to start well because they haven't played together for a long time, and so when you give guys a rest, which this is really smart from Leo and his staff. You said rightly, Jer, that this is Ireland playing. When you go through the Six Nations campaign, even one as good as Ireland had, or a winning one, you are exhausted. There's no, you're travelling, you're training, there's stress, there's mental stress, you're not at your home, you're eating hotel food all the time. You just can't wait to get back to your own bed. That's what really, it's great fun as it is. So they left them for 2 weeks, they recovered, and that was brilliant, and they prepared. But what it does mean, you've got to play games. So I knew, or I believed, there would be a lull in the second half for Leinster, and I didn't want Leicester to be close to them. And as it turns out, they scored enough points in that first 25 minutes to give a cushion through the game. But Leinster will be better for that game. They're getting their game heads on. They've got you can train as much as you like. There's nothing like playing a game of rugby. They'll be better for that. They've got a strong bench. Toulouse having a phenomenally strong forward bench. Be interesting to see what they select later in the week. But no, I actually think Leinster will be much, much better this week than they were last week.
I remember a headline before the Champions Cup final last year where there was speculation that it could have been the two heaviest packs of all time going up against each other, club rugby wise anyway, in that final. A team that had beaten Leinster and obviously a team in Toulouse. We know what the reasons are for Leinster's defeats over the past 2-3 seasons. Will that not be a big factor this weekend and a potentially decisive factor this weekend?
it's a really good question. And it's a question that goes around a lot in rugby circles. I'm not a subscriber to the theory that Leinster can't handle big teams. I'm not a subscriber to that. I'm a subscriber to, because the week before, here's the evidence. A week before I'm talking about last season, a week before at Sandy Park at Exeter, Leinster took on a renowned pack that play very, very abrasive rugby and beat them in one of the best performances I've ever seen. Sometimes when you go out in a semi-final, it's just not your day. You don't play well. I think this Leinster team are haunted by losing to Saracens 2 years ago and losing to La Rochelle last year. And I believe that is a fuel that is driving this. They know they stuffed up. They know it. So let's not taking anything away from Ron O'Gara's La Rochelle. I'm not trying to do that at all. But Leinster in the second half stuffed up. They lost their way. And they know that. They're an honest group. And they're not coming out and saying anything. They're not bragging. They're doing the right thing. They're keeping all their information to themselves. But they know they were the architects of their own downfall the last 2 years. I would be very, very surprised if that happens again this week or next week. Or in the final, if they make it. I think this is a team that has really got the bit between the teeth. They got anger in their stomachs, and they have something else that's not about this. This is what I mean, and I'm not being derogatory to the Munster supporters. This is something that you can't get from the grandstands. You've got to have it burning in your guts, and that is, we stuffed up. We knew we could have done it. We didn't. We don't know how many more chances we got. Let's grab it. And then you've got the staff doing a great job. That's what I'm saying. Some years the stars align, some years they don't. And this year looks really good for Leinster because this team is angry about what's happened in the past. And they're not saying it, but I can promise you that's the case. And I'm very confident's not the right word. I just think, because I've lost the semi-final. I walked into a semi-final, thought we could win it, we didn't. So I'm not saying that I'm confident. I'm just saying what I'm seeing. This is a Leinster team that really, really has the bit between its teeth for this year's Heineken Cup.
One last question for you. What's the jersey over your shoulder?
Oh, that one. That's the Balmain Tigers from Sydney. It's my rugby league team in Sydney where I was a boy. I was a hero. And during the bushfires, the terrible bushfires last year in Australia, as you all know, and they were asking people to give money to the bushfires, and a former player, wanted to auction off his jersey. It's signed by all my childhood heroes.
Ah, nice one.
Yeah, and so he was given it, and I didn't want to see it go somewhere that wasn't a good Balmain Tigers home where mine is, and I gave him some money for it, and that money went to the bushfires fund for the south coast of New South Wales, and I got the autograph of all my heroes from when I was a boy.
And it's funny that they're the Australian national team colours as well.
Well, yeah, pretty much. It's more gold. It's more gold and black than green and gold, but that's the same jersey. Yeah, it's the same. It's a wonderful traditional jersey. This is in France. I've got nothing of my rugby days or from my childhood here and where I live in France. So I got it sent across, and I got it hanging up on the wall behind me, much to my wife's complete displeasure.
Well, everybody needs just a little portion of their own life, a little bit of space. That's what we need. Matt, good stuff.
Good to see you guys. Great to talk.
Thanks a million. Cheers. Enjoy the games of the weekend.
Bye now. Bye.
Matt Williams giving us his thoughts there. One thing about that semi-final last year, obviously, there was no Sexton, there was no Gibson Park. It's a slightly different team now. There was no Caelan Doris. They're all important.
Forget about that.
They're all significant changes. Andrew Porter was on the bench and wasn't fully fit as well. So
yeah, that pack has transformed.
That's the thing. Like it's not the same. So 8:44 this morning here on OTB AM. HC says, Lord, I love Matt Williams. Ger is just teeing City up to lose the last 3 games, says Oisin, and the upper tier says, Ger, lay off the lemon. This is the most animated you've been all season.
Villa got beaten. I think that's the explanation.
John Duggan, good morning to you. How are you?
Ger and Eoin, are we well?
Very well. You have you've been away for a while. You've been out and around, and the Spurs Stadium.
Yes.
Talk to us about it.
Well, I think the most important thing about stadiums or stadia, whatever way you want to call it, is the noise travels. And this stadium, the noise, the sound really travels around it. So that's the first thing that makes it such a great experience. Obviously, hugely modern. There's kind of they built, I think, learning from other stadiums, they built a wall more so, almost like the Anfield Cop. So there's a slant to the old South Stand at Spurs. So therefore, there's a real sense of the most passionate support have their area in the ground. So you're playing into a slant, kind of a wall end of the new White Hart Lane. So it's incredibly modern, good. Like they have, they want an experience where the fans can turn up, maybe have a couple of beers before the game, a bit like Croke Park, and then a couple of beers after the game. They got a deal with Beavertown, that beer company. So they serve like Heineken and Amstel and all that, but Beavertown neck oil, I remember it being in the drink. That's myself and Duncan, my nephew. We spotted a Tottenham Ireland flag, so we got a picture taken with it, just one of the pubs outside White Hart Lane. Some good pubs on the road from Seven Sisters Tube Station. So Owen, you're gonna have a great time tomorrow night. And yeah, it's like good food, good beer. They actually serve the beer. They've got this magnet where they pour the pints from underneath.
Yeah, they had them at Anfield as well. Like, I still don't really understand how it works.
No, neither do I. But it's whatever they close it works.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
You've seen them?
I have, yeah. I again still mystified by how they actually
technology,
operate.
What? It's like, what?
So the pints are poured from the bottom, and obviously you can do them a lot quicker. But yeah, it's a fitting. It's a 22nd century stadium. Unfortunately, the product on the pitch isn't very good, unless you watch NFL there.
Unless they win tomorrow night, then all of a sudden I presume that transforms how you'd...
I don't think it transforms it. I still think Arsenal, but I'll have a 1-point lead, and they play Newcastle away in Everton, don't they? So I think Arsenal's very much still in the driving seat. I'm not getting my hopes up at all, really, I don't think.
At home, though, against Arsenal over the last little while, they've been exceptional. I think the North London derby has kind of gone to the home team.
Yeah, Tottenham have been good at home as well.
Yeah.
Been good at home.
And that Everton fixture for Arsenal in the last day of the season surely gives you hope if they get 3 points.
I think the Newcastle one is harder for Arsenal to go to Newcastle rather than hosting Everton at home, because Everton could be
terrible
safe by then.
As well.
Everton could be safe. They got Watford tonight, and with Leeds and Burnley not pulling up any trees, I think Frank Lampard might be able to conjure that. So that's what the Spurs experience is. Funny. There's a tradition that we go for lobster rolls in Soho every time we go to Spurs game.
Very posh.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Are they good? Are they amazing lobster rolls?
They're amazing lobster rolls.
Right.
Yeah. In this place called Burger and Lobster, which has got a few branches in London. It's 20 quid just for the lobster roll.
Right, okay.
And yeah.
Sure look. A bit bougie, why not?
You only live once. So what's going on? Yeah, so out of last night, I suppose the most interesting thing was Fabinho's hamstring. How long will he be out for? Will he miss the cup final against Chelsea? Will he miss the Champions League final? Liverpool kind of dug it out, 2-1 win over Aston Villa. Man City in action tonight without Ruben Diaz, John Stones or Kyle Walker for the game against Wolves, 8:15 start. Leeds, Chelsea 7:30. Will Tuchel rest players? Everton, Watford, as I said, and Leicester, Norwich, both 7:45. Erling Haaland, I suppose one of the interesting things about his transfer is that he won't be playing at the World Cup. So he'll get a break, won't he? Erling Haaland. And when you think about Harry Kane, that they were talking about 150 million for City to get a 60 million signing, and other add-ons to make about 85 million sterling, but it still seems quite a bargain if he can stay fit, and there could be a good resale price for Erling Haaland in future years. Will he be the missing link, the missing piece to get City to the Champions League summit? We have a breaking story that All-Ireland champions Limerick are dealing with what they describe as a breach of team protocols by a member of the senior hurling squad. So the Irish Independent reporting and other outlets now that a player was arrested and then released without charge after being involved in an altercation in a pub with a Tipperary hurler following Sunday's Munster Championship match between the teams. So we'll wait and see if that develops over the next few days.
Okay, right. You kind of felt like nothing was going to derail Limerick this year, so we'll see what happens. The back page of the Irish Independent also has, from Colm Keys, a story that a member of the CCCC or the CHC has been contacted in advance of a hearing into the red card that Ian Galvin got, not by anybody connected with Ian Galvin, but that this is unauthorised communication. Attempting to lobby on behalf of somebody is what the rules are essentially set up to do, to prevent anybody attempting to lobby on behalf of somebody who's come in advance of a suspension hearing. So that person is now at risk of suspension. But it just goes to show things get very heightened around championship time. People make decisions. People try and get involved in stuff. And I know these stories are getting more and more common, unfortunately. So we'll keep a close eye on that breaking story that John is just talking about the breach of, how did they refer to it?
A breach of team protocols, which the management are dealing with. Will that player feature against Clare this weekend in the final round robin game in Ennis?
A breach of team protocols kind of covers a lot, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's very sanitized language. This thing has happened. There has been an event. Yes, we know about it, and that's it. There's no sense of like morality in the language.
Well, we're going to handle this very privately.
This is none of your business.
Yeah.
Stop asking us questions.
It's a PGA Tour. You're not going to find out what the sanction is.
No.
Speaking of the PGA Tour, Greg Norman, so he's the public face, as we know, of this Saudi-backed breakaway tour called the LIV Tour. He's got $2 billion in funding now this week. He's looking to establish a 14-tournament global series by 2024 to rival the PGA Tour and the DP World Tours. So the PGA Tour have now refused to allow releases to players to take part in a tournament in St Albans just outside London next month. So I think there's going to be legal battles ensuing here. The lawyers will be licking their lips because...
The money's worth it.
The players will say, I'm an independent contractor.
Yeah, and the money seems to be worth it for those players. The Robert Garrigas of this world fighting for a $4 million pot for the winner, just for the winner.
And the 120,000 for the last place.
And no cut.
No cut, yeah. So PGA Tour, from their perspective, will feel, well, they've got sponsorship and broadcast agreements that they've signed up to, which would, the whole point is that you have to have the best players there to protect their investment in their tour. I think one of the things they have an issue with is the fact that 4 of these LIV events will be in America this year. Lee West and Sergio Garcia believed to be just 2 of the players to have sought a waiver to play. These are the Greg Norman quotes. Greg Norman is, I wish he'd go away, but he's not going away. The Tour's action is anti-golfer, anti-fan, anti-competitive. But no matter what obstacles the PGA Tour puts in our way, we will not be stopped. We will continue to give our players options that promote the great game of golf globally. 100%, I understand questions about sports washing. And it's reprehensible what happened with the Jamal Khashoggi. Own up to it, talk about it. But if you go back into Saudi Arabia, they're making a cultural change from within to change that. They don't want to have that stigma sitting over there. The generation of kids I see today in the driving range, they don't want that stigma going on into generations of their kids. They want to change the culture, and they're changing it. And you know what they're doing it? Golf. I'm not going to get into politics. I don't know what the Saudi government does. I don't want to get into that. Every country's got a cross to bear. They're not my bosses. We're independent. I do not answer to Saudi Arabia. I do not answer to their government or MBS.
Like, you know, everybody's a hypocrite. Everybody is a hypocrite. Whataboutery always works as a tactic because you can always point to stuff. So, well, let's wait and see what the legal ramifications of players trying to get the waivers are and who ends up playing in the tournament in England, but then more interestingly, who ends up playing in the tournament in America. Because he's right, the money is going to be there forever. It's not going away. Golf is a closed shop, and there's a civil war coming in golf, and it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens. So, John, good stuff. Thanks.
All right, guys, take care.
More from John on tomorrow, and of course you can hear him on News Talk Breakfast every day, and of course on Saturdays on Off the Ball on News Talk. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. A reminder to come join the football pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue and special guests at the Royal Theatre Castlebar, 6:30 on Thursday the 2nd of June. You can get your tickets now, otbsports.com/events. Up next, ex-Dublin footballer Kian O'Sullivan chatting with Eoin. First though, sad news that FIFA and EA Sports are no longer in a relationship. Joe, Mick and Richie on the newsround last night reflected on how the FIFA video games were one of the few positive aspects linked to the association.
The thing about it is, as many problems as people might point out with the FIFA franchise, and I kind of hear about them more than most from the room next door, is like they've been at it for so long and they know the game inside out, and they're able to develop it, they're able to tweak it, they know their audience, they know exactly what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. And somebody is going to have to start this from scratch if FIFA are going to continue on the brand. And there was a good point made by, I think it was Grant Wall earlier on. Like, it's sad in a way because it was one of the few times you'd ever hear FIFA the name or the word FIFA mentioned in a positive slant or even a vaguely positive slant. Now that's just completely gone, because FIFA is just a byword for corruption and, you know, backhanders and brown envelopes and, you know, sports washing. Whereas, you know, they had a nice little product on the go. They had, you know, we're in 150 million households every year, in a positive manner. And that's just all wiped away now because they want to double their money, and the game is still going to be the same. So the only ones that really suffer here are FIFA.
I think that's exactly right. I think FIFA are the losers in this. You know, they're losing out on 150 million a year, but also, like, exactly any positivity associated with the name whatsoever, or any, I think, acceptance among folk to just sort of like let FIFA be as it is, because in some weird way I associate FIFA with this game that I love playing on Christmas morning or at 2 o'clock in the morning when I should be going to bed. All that's gone now. They don't have that. I think that actually, in a weird way, it sounds stupid, but I actually think that actually will harm them.
Okay, so Cian O'Sullivan, an 8-time All-Ireland winner with Dublin, joins us now as part of the AirGrid Timing sponsorship launch. AirGrid, Ireland's grid operator, is now in its 7th year as the official timing partner of the GAA. Cian, how are you getting on?
Good, thanks. Yeah, I can't complain, kept busy.
We are talking here on what is a pretty glorious Tuesday afternoon. Croke Park sees its first taste of football championship action this weekend. Is this the first time you've thought to yourself, God, I'd love to be back in there?
Yeah, there's always a little bit of you that's yearning to play. Like, it's funny, these are you'd like to miss all the drudge and toil of training in winter and all the fitness and mass tests that go with getting ready for this point, and just leapfrog straight into a game. That'd be nice, but it doesn't work that way. But yeah, look, I only hung up the boots last summer, so the bug hasn't fully left me yet. But
I presume then you don't miss that fitness work and that drudge, as you referred to it there, at all.
No, like, I actually didn't mind that too much, to be honest. But yeah, no, moved on to a new phase in my life. Even if I wanted to keep doing it, I think the body just the body wouldn't be up to it. So yeah, we had a new arrival there 10 weeks ago, and
congratulations.
We recently moved house and all that stuff, so kept mighty busy. I thought when I finished playing football I'd have all this free time on my hands. I was wondering what I was going to do, and I was like, I play a little bit of golf. But I've less free time on my hands now than I've ever had. So yeah, even the thoughts of playing football, I'm like, Janie, I don't know where I would squeeze that in.
Maybe give it 20 years or so and you'll finally get the clubs back out. That's it's an interesting kind of departure from the scene that you had, where obviously, as you say, it was the body that eventually gave in. It did feel at the end of your career that there was still very much a contribution, maybe even just from the bench, that you could have made to the Dublin team, which is in a little bit of contrast to maybe some of the other teammates who departed over the last couple of years, where the next batch of players coming through were just so good they couldn't get in and actually get minutes off the bench. Like, was there a slight frustration about that there was clearly a sense that you could have got some meaningful minutes as a Dublin player?
Yeah, like, I think injury is always a part of my career. Even we had the 10-year anniversary. Well, sorry, it was last year, but because of COVID, we had to kick it out. But we had a 10-year reunion there for the 2011 team at the weekend, and even looking back on that season, like, I missed all of the Leinster Championship through injury. I kind of forget about that. I'm like, Jesus, I kind of was. Injury kind of played its part, quite squarely in my career each season. So I guess the difference in the last 2 years, in 2020 and 2021, was that I think I really just ran out of road. And previous years I was able to get it right for the important parts of the season, whereas in 2020 and 2021, despite best efforts, and I really threw the kitchen sink at it, and I'm glad that I did. I'm glad I made that decision to do that and go back and try and do it, because at least that decision to step away, then you can do it with no regrets, and it's a lot easier to take. But that was the difference, you know. So I was used to dealing with injuries, but I just wasn't used to not playing anything, you know, because of them. So that was hard. That was definitely a challenge in the last 2 years, in 2020 and 2021. Yeah.
The relationship that you have with injuries also kind of led to this cloud of uncertainty for opposing teams, it felt sometimes. Like, I mean, the 2015 All-Irelands, am I right in saying that was the year where it was up in the air whether or not you'd play? And I presume from your perspective, it was quite a late decision that you would actually play that All-Ireland final.
Yeah, that was like, you know, when I look back on my career, that was, you know, one of my highlights is probably that game, just personally, because we played Mayo in a semi-final replay. There was only 2-week turnaround to the final as opposed to the usual 3-week turnaround. And literally the last kick of the game, and I tore the hamstring, bloody grade 3 tear in my hamstring, and it was kind of like, okay, look, you know, straight away I got the scan. They're like, look, you know, you're not gonna play in the final, unfortunately. Give it a lash, you know, if you want to try, but it's not gonna happen. And then whatever way the body responded, and, you know, kind of ate, slept, drank recovery for those 2 weeks, and I managed to get on the pitch, managed to play, and got like 60 minutes out of it, and that was just, you know, to face that adversity, and then like to get on the pitch was one thing, and then to actually win the game, and to have played, you know, 50 minutes or whatever it was, that was really, really rewarding. You know, that was really, really special moment for me. Yeah.
I hadn't realised there was a hamstring tear in the space of 2 weeks. That doesn't happen too often, that level of recovery.
Yeah, it was bananas. I don't know how. Yeah, just doing everything to try and get it right, you know. And whatever I did worked. So yeah, it was pretty rewarding. Yeah.
That time in the lifespan of your Dublin team is a really interesting time, because I guess 2015 was the year you had kind of but Rory O'Carroll had started to nail down the full back position. Any questions around Dublin's defence seem to have been fixed almost in 2015. Obviously, Rory, the parts of scene after that, and the questions kind of come back up. And it feels that after that point, your role as a sweeper in the Dublin defence kind of went to a whole other level. Is that fair to say? Or when for you was the first time when you thought to yourself, right, me as the anchor point of this defence, this is a really, really important role that I fulfill?
Yeah, like there was never a eureka moment. It was always slow to say that, you know, we play a sweeper role. I think our view was that if we had a spare man in the backs, well, let's make use of that, and let's try and make me that player. If teams wanted to go man at man and 6 up, we'll go 6 up all day. Thanks very much. But the style of play at the time wasn't that. There was always 1 or 2 wing forwards dropping back to try and, you know, shore up their defence against our attack, who were pretty formidable. So that inevitably left us with 1 man, and I guess 1 extra man, and as opposed to playing that high court press, all out attack, which, you know, probably came unstuck in 2014. He said, all right, let's look at this a different way, and make sure we have a pretty resilient defensive structure. And I kind of just naturally started to slip into that piece of the jigsaw, and I was happy to do so, and felt comfortable with that role.
Whose decision was it? Was it just one night in training, Jim Gavin said, listen, you're going to be the spare man and to hang back, or how does that decision get made?
No, I think it was over the course of a number of years. You know, I remember even under Pat Gilroy playing a bit of a sweeper role at times, depending on the opposition and whatever tactics we were trying to employ at the time. And even in early in my career, like I kind of played up. Or even under like 15, I played corner forward and like Dublin development squads, which is just bananas. I can kick the scores, but I don't know. Maybe because I've played so many different positions, I kind of just had a bit of a more rounded experience of playing that role, and it suited me, and I enjoyed it, and I felt comfortable in it. But there was never like a watershed moment or a meeting where we said, okay, look, this is what we're going to do. This is the master plan, and this is how we're going to tackle the next 6 games, and we're going to have this as a key anchor of our defensive strategy. It just kind of took on a life of its own, really. You know.
You said that you felt immediately comfortable in that position, and quite often what people said about you in that role was just the ability to read the game. Kind of like people would talk about Seamus Moynihan and his ability to read the game. I presume that's just a hard thing to quantify in your head, or a hard thing to put down to a skill set, or how you actually practice that. I presume anyway it was all instinctive, or was it?
Yeah, like, so people who would give credit for it would say it's an instinctive and it's great reading the game. Other people would just see it as sitting there marking space and not doing much. Yeah, like I think the key, it was always about identifying the threats. You know, what was and trying to cut them out and negate them. You know, if it's a running game that a team's playing, all right, well, you're gonna have to expect yourself to step out of that 6 and meet the on-runner. If it's a more traditional kicking game like a Kerry, well, then you know as soon as the ball meets that middle third where they can foreseeably kick it into our full forward line, okay, well, how can I position myself to cut out an option, limit their options coming in? So I guess you're kind of reading the game, the transition, the opposition's transition as it's developing, as to what kind of attack that they have, and you're also probably reading body positions and body language of players. You know, are they running it? Are they shaping up to kick it? You know, having a good familiarity of players as well. You know, who likes to link in with who, crossfield balls, high balls. If Donaghy's inside for Kerry, you know, you need to be a little tighter into your full back line if they're going to hit a big long-ranging boomer ball in, whereas if it was a James Donoghue or a Gooch, it's more likely a crossfield, low trajectory ball that you can step out a little bit from to try and cut it out. So, yeah, it was probably a reading of opposition players and their transitions, and then you're just cutting out options.
I must say that does sound slightly instinctive, but it also sounds like you did a hell of a lot of hard work in terms of identifying threats, watching tape, and knowing exactly the information that you kind of just described there over the last couple of minutes, what an opposition attack likes to do.
Not massively either. Like, you're playing these teams quite regularly as well, so you build up a fairly organic knowledge or bank of knowledge on the players just through, and that's probably the best experience. You know, you can sit in front of a page and write down notes on an A4 pad, and then as soon as you get into the pitch, you couldn't recite one of the points that you've written down. So I think just that, and it was it was kind of familiar faces that we were facing the whole time, and the Mayos, the Kerrys, and the Tyrones. So yeah, there was a build-up of style. Just
very interesting
experience.
One of the other things I wanted to ask you about is this notion that you've walked away now with 8 All-Ireland medals, joint at the very top of the leaderboard. Are you hoping now that Michael Fitzsimons and James McCarthy just decide to ride off into the sunset before this year is done?
Oh man, I got sleepless nights thinking about them walking up the steps of the hub. No, of course not. Jesus, no. Like, there's guys. I was incredibly fortunate. Like, there's nothing special about me that I managed to have 8 All-Irelands. I was just lucky to have been. I was lucky I was born in 1988 and to have been my playing career straddled 2011 to 2020. Other players who've played for Dublin weren't as lucky. You know, Kieran Will is the often cited example of someone who, I think he started in 96 and did he finish in 2010 or 2009. So he just like straddled the Barn period and won no All-Irelands. Yet he's, go down as one of the county's greatest players. So, that's not something I would pay much heed to.
You say it's luck, but at the same time, I guess the time frame wasn't necessarily just 2011 to 2020. It was 2009 to 2020. And if I'm not mistaken, I think you come into the All-Ireland quarter-final in 2009 against Kerry after 25 minutes, half an hour, when the game looked lost already. So that, I'd assume, in one of your first championship experiences in the Blue of Dublin, is a massive moment in your career as well for what comes after.
Yeah, it definitely was. Like, that was a very humbling / confidence beating experience. I was thrilled to get my debut for Dublin in an All-Ireland quarter-final.
Oh, that was your first appearance in a championship, is it?
Well, I came on as a blood sub against Kildare in the Leinster final for a couple of minutes. My first proper spell of play was against Kerry in that quarter-final. The game was already lost when I came on, really, now, to be honest. But yeah, even there was a lot of criticism level at the team. It was Pat's first year, and the future didn't look that bright at all in the immediate aftermath of that game. We were the startled earwigs. But then you fast forward 2 years later and we've won an All-Ireland. So it was really amazing to think how much of a turn around was performed on that team in that period. It's a massive credit due to Pat Gilroy and Mickey Whelan for the stranglehold they took over that Dublin senior football team, and the cultural change they brought about in that team, which I think was the foundation for what Jim took over and then just morphed into something completely, beyond what I ever thought it might be when I started out in 2009. Yeah.
Was there anything that was done in particular with relation to you over the course of those couple of years between 2009 and 2011 that rebuilt that confidence that you say might have been a little bit damaged after 2009?
I think for me personally, Crokes were going through a really good spell at the time. We'd won an All-Ireland in 2009. We won another Dublin Championship in 2010, I think, and got beaten in a semi-final that year against Crossmaglen. So we were going really well, and I was playing good football and enjoying it. So I think personally for me, that was I got my confidence through that, and then I think it was back to ground zero with Dublin in 2010. There's a real emphasis put on the league and even the O'Byrne Cup. Actually we had our 10-year reunion in 2011 there, and the Season of Sundays publication was given out to all the players, and I was just flicking back through it, and you see Mick McCauley was talking out for O'Byrne Cup games and Bernard Brogan, and we had some of our top players playing in that early stage competition, which is used as a Dublin's kind of second/third team, to try and blood some new players now. So it was really back to ground zero and to build from the bottom up. I think confidence slowly started to come back into the team with I think we got to did we get to a league final, or we had good league campaigns anyway. So yeah, in 2010, 2010 we got to an All-Ireland semi-final and we were beaten by Cork, who went on and won it. There was a great Cork team that year. So we weren't that far off it. We knew we weren't that far off it.
Yeah, and we all know what happened next. Just one very quick one before you let you go, Cian, just on the Dublin setup this year. You talk about coming back from that confidence denting experience in 2009. I'm not sure there was any confidence dented after the league campaign this year at Dublin, but it definitely looked like a bit of an angry performance against Wexford. It definitely looks like you're not going to take any prisoners during this year's Leinster Championship.
No, I think I'm very optimistic for Dublin's championship. Dublin's chances this year. I look down to the team sheet and I look at some of the form that players were hitting it against Wexford, and some of the players that are reintegrating back into the team that need 3 or 4 games under their belt to really be at their zenith. So I think they have great chances this year, and I'm quietly optimistic. I know the league campaign wasn't what I'm sure that they had planned for, but what I liked about the approach that was taken was obviously a very much a long-term vision there for this team, and Desi isn't looking for a just one-off success. He's looking to build a sustainable something sustainable for the next number of years, and if that meant sacrificing a league or a couple of league games to blood new players that needed to come into the squad, he's willing to do that. So for me, that's very encouraging, and I still look at the core of that team, and I think it's going to take a really, really, really strong team to stop them.
Yeah, and a couple of them will get to that magic 9 if things go well for them this year and potentially beyond, which is obviously the most important thing. Cian O'Sullivan, just the 8 All-Irelands for him with Dublin, of course. He was with us as part of the AirGrid timing sponsorship launch. AirGrid, Ireland's grid operator, is now in its 7th year as the official timing partner of the GAA. Cian, good to chat to you.
The 1972 Miami Dolphins, who of course are the only unbeaten team to win a Super Bowl, always get the champagne corks out whenever the last unbeaten team falls every year. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the 8 in a row or 8 All-Ireland medal dubs are like pop?
Yeah, possibly. You got like Cluxon and Cian O'Sullivan and the other coterie of players, just Philly, just get together and have a big celebration.
Not this year.
Not this year. Possibly not.
2 handsome posh bastards is what you said there.
I didn't use the last word.
Having a chat.
Just 2 handsome men just shooting the breeze there. Yeah. Is what people enjoyed over the
2
last
handsome
while.
posh men, you said. Yeah. And not a Dublin accent inside from either of you.
Yeah, true. Well, 2 Kerry men, of course. 2 handsome Kerry men just chatting away.
9:16 this morning, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio today. A brilliant career retrospective with Pat Smullen, the late great Pat Smullen, at 1 o'clock. Coigig is live at 3 with Ciara Grant, our special guest this week. Classic Game Club, Celtic versus Rangers at 4. James McLean studio interview at 6, and then the show tonight live from 7 o'clock. You can follow busy night in the Premier League, so that obviously we're bringing you updates across the evening from that. You can follow Off the Ball across all our social platforms. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and download the OTB Sports app to enjoy the latest and best in sports audio. After the break, we're going to be joined by GAA referee Maggie Farrelly. First, this season's WSL drew to a dramatic close with Emma Hayes Chelsea claiming their 3rd consecutive title. They're the first team to ever do that. On the Coigig pod this week, former Ireland captain and Arsenal goalkeeper Emma Byrne joined Kathleen and Karen to break down the final day in full, and in particular the influence of Chelsea's Golden Boot winner Sam Kerr. The Coigig pod on OTB Sports is in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland's women's national team.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
Aston Villa home last game of the season doesn't seem enough, but I just can't that picture in Steven Gerrard walking out of the Etihad, wearing that like Liverpool jersey underneath the suit, a bit like Superman Clark Kent. Yeah. Heavy irony there if he was to go there with Aston Villa and take points off City. I mean, that would be just Hollywood stuff, wouldn't it? If that was to happen,
Finally
Liverpool
won the league for Liverpool.
That's what I'm saying.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, and download the OTB Sports app.
Well, for me, it was the individual players for Chelsea that really pushed them through. And that for me was the difference between Arsenal and Chelsea. Although I think in general, Arsenal have a better team the way they play and they look more promising. I think they can build on it and they're going to be excellent next season. Chelsea have those players that are just world best
match winners.
Players. Yeah, and they just know how to win. And it can be an individual flair, like whether it's Pernille Harder or Sam Kerr or Aaron Cuthbert or Ji-So Young, who came off the bench and changed the game. I just think they have those players that can really turn the screw. And I think that was a major part in their season. Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned Sam Kerr there, and I think we have to start off somewhere by talking about her season Golden Boot winner. I mean, she's done it across continents. She's done it for her country. She's done it for Chelsea. What is the ceiling for a player like Sam Kerr?
She's just really tenacious. She's the type of player that, you know, you'd probably have a fight with when you're playing World Cup at the top of the road. She's just like in your face. She's a terrier, and you know that showed in the games. And she's a winner. She was getting annoyed with when they were losing. You could see she was getting frustrated as she wanted the ball all the time. A little bit like Olivia O'Toole, you know, if she could take the corners and score off them, she would, type of thing. She's just, you know, she has that fight and that energy, and she is that out and out number 9, which Arsenal struggled with this season. Chelsea had it. They had their out and out number 9, and if Chelsea can get the ball in those areas to Sam Kerr, she's going to score. And I'm sure that's what Emma Hayes was telling her team, just get the ball into those areas, which is not too difficult to do, to be honest. And they were soaking up pressure a lot through the season and, you know, defending quite well. And then they were completely bypassing their midfield to get to Sam or to Harder, who would destroy any back line. And that was basically their tactics throughout the season. And that worked.
Paddy, I go, what? It was Paddy Andrews. I go, yeah. As he goes, this is James' house. He's upstairs. Will I get him?
The Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue are bringing the show on the road. The first stop for Ireland's biggest and best GAA pod will be the Royal Theatre in Castlebar on Thursday, June 2nd, as Paddy, James, Tommy and special guests dissect, analyse and celebrate Mayo football, as well as getting stuck into the runners and riders for Championship 2022. Tickets are €20 plus booking fees and are on sale now. See otbsports.com/events for more.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 21 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTB AM. It's Cian O'Sullivan with you all the way through until 10. If you'd like to get anything off your chest, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can leave a comment in the YouTube stream. And a reminder, of course, that we are live each morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Now, delighted to be joined by leading GAA referee Maggie Farrelly ahead of today's launch of Super Values #Community Includes Everyone campaign. And now in their 13th year of supporting the GAA All-Ireland Senior Football Championship, Super Value is once again calling on each and every member of GAA communities across the country to do what they can to make their community more diverse and inclusive. Maggie, good morning to you. How are you getting on? Hi, Maggie.
Good morning. How's it going, Joe?
Yeah, good. You can hear us all right. A bit of a delay on the line. You're in the bowels of Croke Park there, where sometimes the reception isn't amazing. Come here. What's your schedule like at the moment? How soon in advance are you getting notice of what games you're going to be doing?
Yeah, I suppose it's a week on, week off. I suppose, appointments are given out mostly of a Monday morning. At the moment, I'm back at Club Scene. The National League finished up there a couple of weeks back, so it's just focused on Club Scene at the moment. And then whatever opportunities comes up then during the championship, I was involved with the Derry Tyrone game there as fourth official. And last weekend, I was running the line for the under-20 game with Kildare and Sligo in Breffni. So it kind of just goes from week to week with appointments.
What is the fourth official gig in Gaelic football in particular? Because we kind of quite familiar with it from soccer and seeing the fourth official and all that stuff. What is the role actually in GAA?
Yeah, so the sideline official looks after all the substitutions and looks after all the, the technical boxes from both sides of match, just ensuring that everybody's in their designated area. You're also, in terms of additional time that's added on to each half, you're showing the board for that as well. So there are your probably three main responsibilities in terms of dealing with substitutions, making sure that everybody is behaving themselves along the line and so far as that everybody's in their technical area doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then, as I said, then just indicating then what times to be added on then after each half.
I'd say being on the sideline for Derry Tyrone is almost as dangerous as being inside in the game.
Oh, we lost you there, Maggie, did we?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch that there.
I was just making the point about the sideline at the Derry Tyrone game. It seemed pretty animated. Roy Gallagher, of course, giving his best to G on the team. I presume as a fourth official, when you're in there in the sideline and those managers are, things are getting pretty exciting out there. There is a fair amount of you to do, for you to do, especially when it comes to like telling the lads to stay in their area.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, as we all know that managers, can be, quite boisterous along the line, and it's just to ensure that they're, being respectful of their own players and respectful of team officials and their opposition and so on. So you're just managing that, and you're just making sure that they're not crossing the line in terms of where they're at and what they're doing and what they're saying and so on. So again, you have to be on the forefront. You can't be passive. You have to be, on the ball as such with those kind of behaviours and just trying to, do the best you can in that given situation.
I was going to say that being the sideline official sounds like it's far more work. There's loads more that can go wrong in terms of, okay, was that a blood sub? Was that their 5th sub? Was that their 6th sub? How much extra time am I going to have to... Like, that is a very busy role compared with on the field. It's ebb and flow. The game is on. The game starts. The game finishes. You're getting a bit of help, hopefully, from your sideline. It sounds like you might prefer being on the field in the middle of the action than being responsible for all of the comings and goings for both teams.
Yeah, sometimes it's probably easier to be the person in the middle refereeing the game rather than being on the sideline. As you alluded to there, it can be a very busy time, particularly when you're dealing with maybe incidents along the sideline, dealing maybe with a substitution or a blood sub. Again, you're recording all those incidents that happen, and again, it's your duty and responsibility to record all the substitutions, whether it's a full sub or if it's a temporary substitution. So again, you've a lot to, I suppose, to think about and a lot to do. But again, it all comes back to your teamwork, the teamwork with the referee, So from a substitution perspective, you're letting the referee know that a substitution is ready, and then once the referee is ready, then like in a stoppage and play, that he is ready to take the sub on. So again, it's all about the communication that we have with each other and the teamwork, and that's, I suppose, essentially how we work together, on a given day.
Who else is on the headset? So you're obviously on a headset to the referee, is that right?
Yeah, so we're all mic'd up. So we're linked in with the referee, the 4 umpires, 2 lines people, and the 4th official. So you've got a strong team of 7 that's wired up at any given time, and again, everybody's in communication there,
And is it open communication all the time? Are people chatting away, kind of keep an eye out? No,
definitely not. No, you only talk when you need to talk. So everything is very limited. Because obviously you don't want to be causing distractions. So you're only talking when you absolutely need to talk.
Okay, so just because I'm thinking about this, right? At the end of the game, both teams are sending on subs kind of at the same time. Sometimes double substitutions, sometimes double substitutions. So 5 minutes left, both teams are putting on 2 players at the same time. A blood sub is coming on separately, and you're like, okay, how much time am I adding on here? And I've got to make sure I've got these 4 right. You can see how mistakes will be made.
Yeah, again, it's keeping it on top of your paperwork and just working together and being calm along the sideline is the key. That you don't get too excited or you don't get bogged down on what's really happening. You have a job to do. You have a role to do, and it's just to ensure that you've got full confidence in yourself and that you are and remain calm under pressure at all times. Again, it's the communication that you have with the referee. That you're not allowing substitutions happen until he is ready. So everything is very much on the referee's control, and again, it's up to him to announce additional time as well. So he would communicate that over if it's 2 or 3 minutes, depending on the number of substitutions and stoppages that there was in play. He will relay that message on to the sideline official, and then the sideline official then indicates it then to the spectator. So again, it's the teamwork, it's the communication that we have, and the key is in any of those roles is that you remain calm and that you're confident in your role.
Yeah, there is a lot, it seems, for the referee and for all the officials, I guess, to kind of look after at the moment, but especially the referee. Like I saw in the Tyrone under-20s game the last day, there was kind of like a wrong red card given out until the referee kind of corrected his decision. Obviously with the timekeeping, as we mentioned there, it's a bit of a mire sometimes. Would you like some of those decisions or some of those responsibilities to be taken out of the hands of the person in the middle at the very least?
Yeah, look at. I suppose it's part and parcel of her game. It's one of those. That you're responsible for. Because at the end of the day, you're the person in the middle that's stopping the clock. To deal with substitutions or to deal with injuries. So it's your clock that stops. So it's up to you then to add on a sufficient time then to the covers or allows for that time that has elapsed. During those breakages. In play. So. I suppose it's probably is the duty and the responsibility of the referee to deal with that,
Do you look at other sports, like in particular, maybe like basketball with 2 referees, and maybe even women's football with the hooter system as, I guess, possible things that men's Gaelic football could implement?
Yeah, there's different strategies, and I suppose that there was an experimental back a number of years ago with the hooter system in play as well. Again, but it's a communication that you have with the person that's working on the hooter. That when the referee has stopped the play for, as I said, an injury or for a substitution, that the person on the hooter stops the clock at the exact same time. That is actually counting down. So again, it's working in collaboration with each other to ensure that the same time is marked off, by both personnel.
What are your hopes for the rest of the season, Maggie, in terms of your involvement? Is there a plan in place? Is it that far ahead? Do you know what games you might be involved in, or is it, as you said, just week to week at the moment? It's just week to week at the moment. So there's no big plan as such. Just to do the best that I can every time I'm out there, and every given opportunity, I suppose. And for me, it's just. Whatever games I get, I'm very happy to be involved in, and I look forward to the season ahead. One last question: the Give Respect campaign has obviously been at the forefront in recent years. Is it having an impact? Are we as a society and as sports supporters and fans and members of GAA clubs getting better at respecting the difficulties that referees have? Yeah, the Get Respect, Give Respect. Yeah, that campaign is in for the last number of years, I suppose, and I suppose the most important thing is that it starts off at grassroots level as well. It's okay that that at national level and so on, but at grassroots level where it needs to be kind of honed in. That particularly when young referees or new referees are taking up the whistle, that they are getting the respect, and they are getting the chance, to obviously when you're starting out, you're going to make mistakes. Obviously, when you're at that, as you progress as well, it's inevitable that you make mistakes too. But it's just to ensure that people are respectful. At the end of the day, you've only got a split second to make a decision, and you sort of have to just live with that. But it's not for people to get, being aggressive or, to be disrespectful to people, just losing their heads with referees or officials, Yeah, well, fingers crossed that does continue to have an impact and we get better at it, because it still feels like we've a good way to go. Maggie, enjoy the rest of the season. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers. No problem. Thank you, Jared. Cheers. It's Maggie Farrelly there, one of the leading GAA referees, talking to us about the rest of the season. I didn't realise the fourth official was so busy. That's chaos. Yeah. When you think about the end of games in particularly big championship matches where there's lads diving, rolling around the place, Phil Fodening it, and you're like, how many subs have gone on? Yeah. Was that a blood? Was that a concussion? And they need to get it right as well. I sometimes don't know how print journalists on a deadline on a Saturday night game in Croke Park manage to do it. But if they make a mistake, who cares? I mean, obviously, but they also have maybe also have a few extra seconds. They have colleagues around them to what happened there? Compare notes. Yeah. They might maybe have it on TV to watch it back. But being the actual fourth official, where it's on that is real, on the deadline stuff. You got to do it right now, and it's got to be right, because if it's a big game, you're going to be remembered for a long time if you get the wrong call on that one. So you're going to London town with a little knapsack over your back, and maybe you'll never come home. Maybe I'll never come home. Puss in Boots. Indeed. That is me. The big game tomorrow night, going to that spaceship of a stadium to see the most visceral derby in world football. The cheese mile doesn't exist, does it? They got rid of that because it was too posh. Is that what happened? I don't know, actually. I had the most expensive cheese something or other, a cheese room. It was colder than the rest of the stadium. I mean, I don't know. There was something weird about cheese and the amount of money that they'd spent on cheese at the stadium, that when COVID hit, there was a bit of a backlash. Hang on a second there now. So I don't know. Unbelievable. VIP cheese room at New Spurs Stadium melts away There you go.
Says The Guardian in February of 2019.
There you go. 9:33 this morning. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. So Ashley's going to be in joining me as co-host tomorrow from 7:30. Will be bringing us the latest hurling power rankings. The newest episode of Have You Seen will drop live with Joseph Conroy in the line, and much more on tomorrow's show as well. Right now, leaving you with some more from Joe Malloy's conversation with Joe Canning from last night's show. This is interesting. Enjoy.
Now, very happy to say we have one of the great hurlers in the history of the game with us, which is always a good thing. And he's speaking as part of the launch of the Bord Gáis Energy GAA Legends Tour series at Croke Park. So after 2 years, for obvious reasons, of virtual tours, fans can now once again join their heroes for in-person tours of Croke Park and be on the end of some fascinating insights into various careers. So the tours start on Saturday, May 28th. They will feature Joe, amongst others, a host of legends from across the GAA world. Bord Gáis Energy customers will get the exclusive opportunity as well to attend all tours throughout the summer. And so for a full schedule and details, very easy, just go to crokepark.ie/legends. Joe Canning, great to have you on. How are things?
Thanks, Joe. All good now. All good, and yourself?
Very well. Going to put you under pressure. Give us a Croke Park story or insight or memory which means something.
Probably like after winning the All, like any of the club All Irelands or just the All Ireland 17, just meeting mum and dad after, like that's just meeting them on the sideline. That was the biggest thing for me. Because that's, like I've said it before, that's who I played for. Like that's who I kind of that was my why or my want, I suppose. You know, when people ask you like what's your reason for going through hardship, that was it. It was to see the smile in their faces after winning something big like an All Ireland with the club or with the county, and just to see the enjoyment on their faces that it gave. That's the memory that lasts with me forever. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's a good one. Were they generally in the same place in Croke Park?
Well, like I kind of know where, like I used to look after the tickets a good bit when I was playing, myself and the brother Frank. So I kind of knew where they were going to be sitting anyway. So like generally I would have known where they would have been. Like there's numbers on the gates down here in Croke Park, so you kind of know what section they'd be in, and you'd kind of go to that section. And if you spotted them, brilliant. Like they normally burst their way down to the front anyway. So yeah, it was easy enough kind of get them after the game that way. Yeah.
Would you share a lot with them about how things were going at training, how you were feeling about your form, how you were feeling about a game, and they were all very aware and involved and all that?
No, not at all. No, I wouldn't have. It's gas. Dad always like give out to me because obviously lads asking him, "Geez, how's Joe and how's the boys going to train?" And he wouldn't have a clue. Like, because I would have never. He didn't need to know, you know. Like, of course, he needed to know for himself, like, and tell the boys in town he'd be a great man. But like, he didn't need to know really. Like, he knew how. He would have asked me when I was at home and stuff like that, how you feeling, and I would have told him that sort of stuff. But I never would have told him how, like, I wouldn't have said, "Geez, we're going very bad." Like, I'd always go, "Yeah, we're grand. Yeah, we're looking forward to it." You know, the usual stuff. But yeah, I would have never. He would have known if by my demeanor, like I wouldn't have been a great person to be around the few days before a match. I'd be cranky enough, and things could get in my nerves a little bit easier than after a game. Let's say if we had won, obviously. If we had lost, I wasn't great either. But yeah, I would have never confided really. Like probably Frank, maybe Ollie a small bit, but I would have talked to them too more about things and asked them more questions rather than Dad or Mum. Yeah, Dad would have been like, for matches, he's proper supporter. Like he wants to know everything. He wants to talk about it, and I wouldn't have been the best. Whereas Mum was more kind of calm and didn't really ask too much. But like she'd probably get more out of me and then tell Dad rather than me telling Dad. You know? So yeah, that was kind of the way it was.
I always, I'm not just speak about it, so you may well have, so apologies if you have. I always thought one of the real amazing touches on your part was in the moments after the All-Ireland final of 17, where, given how long you'd been involved, given what a big deal it was to win the All-Ireland, you would have been very entitled to be front and centre, up the Hogan stand, down at the hill, going bananas, and just by circumstance, you found yourself next to Tony Keady's daughter. And you stayed there for 4 or 5 minutes. It's in Keady's biography, the late Tony Keady, of course, and the family write about how it occurred to Sheahan and his daughter that suddenly a bit of time had passed and the presentation's happening and you're still beside her. I always thought that was an amazing gesture because, like I said, you would have been in your rights to indulge in the ecstasy.
Yeah, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with, I suppose, the amazing gesture I get. It wasn't a thing that kind of I meant to do in a way. I remember it after the match. I was over, there was other my family over near where they came on, and me and Micheál just met them as they were coming onto the pitch, and Margaret and Shannon, the boys actually ran off. The boys went with, I think they could have been with the rest of the lads, I think Micheál's sons and stuff like that as well. But yeah, I went over to my family then, met a couple of them, and then came back out. And yeah, Shannon was just standing there, and Margaret was there, and Micheál. And I never really went up onto the stand. And even the club, I went up the first year, right, because I got man of the match that year, so I had to kind of go up and receive the award. But for the rest of them, I don't think I went up at all. Any of the minor success, I don't think I went up. That was on here. The under 21, I don't think I went up. I just stood back and watched the whole thing from. I think I get a better view anyway.
Suck it in.
Yeah, and as I said, it was important to me to see family straight away. So I wasn't really interested in going up to receive the cup. The cup was, to me at that time, was irrelevant in a strange way. If you get me.
Yeah.
My sole focus after the match was seeing my family. And everything else then was kind of like, yeah, I'll get the cup eventually. Like that'll be interesting later. Like who cares? Like, so yeah, it was more of it wasn't a thing I sought to stand beside the kiddies, but it just something that happened. And if it brought a bit of comfort to Shannon for the few seconds she was on her own, then brilliant. But I'm a bit uneasy with the good kind of not publicity or whatever it is, but people say, geez, it was a great gesture. Yeah, it's fine. Like, but
no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's the way it developed and very natural.
Yeah, it was just a natural thing. It wasn't something that was kind of thought of.
No, I'm sure.
It just happened naturally.
So, was winning the All-Ireland the rush and satisfaction and life fulfillment that you might have thought it would be? Did it live up to what you hoped it would be?
Oh yeah. I've got a good buzz. Yeah. You do, like, you get, like, when the final whistle goes, like, I just went fucking running everywhere. Like, excuse my language, I just went running all over the place. Like, I kind of, not that I lost control, but I didn't really care what I was doing, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you was running around with the lads, like, hugging a few of them, and just, it was like a valve just released pressure, you know. And it was just, we've done it. Thank God we've done it.
Yes.
And
they can't take it away from me. It's done. It's mine. It's over. The questions.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the whole thing, oh geez, if he never wins in All Ireland, it'll be just, but like I've went numerous times saying that should not define a sports person by what they've won in a team sport, I believe. So like, yeah, you contribute to what you win, but like, you need another 14 guys or whatever, 20 guys, and to come onto the pitch and help you. You know, like if I was playing golf, or if I was playing tennis or whatever, if I didn't win titles, then I'd be more defined as a sports person, that I didn't win something when I'm on my own and I'm there. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when you're playing a team sport, you need the rest of the team to get you over the line. Sure. No one person can do everything for 15 people. Do you know? So there's lots of people that, like, I look at whatever, Ollie, let's say, for instance, right? He didn't win an All-Ireland. I look at Ken McGrath, John Milan. Like, there's guys that's, and no offense to them, right, but they sat in a stand for maybe 5 or 6 years and have 5 or 6 All-Irelands in their back pocket. Whereas these boys played numerous times in Croke Park and All-Ireland final out on the pitch. And to say that they're not as respected because they don't have an All-Ireland doesn't really sit well with me, do you know? So like in I always went to, if you're either good enough or you're not, as a team. And that's the hard reality of it. Like, we weren't good enough in 12, 15, 18. But like, that's just life. It's not that we were, some people say, oh geez, you were unlucky or whatever, but we weren't good enough. Simple as that. And that's just life, and that's just sport, you know.
You made your debut in 08, 14 years playing. So it was half your life almost, give or take change, when you retired. It's a hell of a long percentage to be playing for Galway. I know you said it was due to injuries. Where were you mentally? Were you heartbroken to give it up? Were you as hungry as ever? Or was there a part of you that thought, yeah, you know, I can let this wash out to sea now, I'm kind of done?
Mentally, I didn't want to stay overdue my stay. So the last thing I wanted was fellas in the panel to think I was there just based on what I've done previously. So if I couldn't, there's times over the last few years that I didn't train as much as everybody else, right? But I was still able to like get myself ready for games, right? So, but there's only so many times you can go and do that. So like in the last, whatever, like 16, 19, and even last year, I had 3 groin, 3 tendon. So my hamstring tendon came off the bone, my groin tendon came off the bone, and now my other groin tendon only last year in the club championship came off the bone. So like, they're proper injuries, like, no matter what way you think about it. So physically, I knew myself that I wouldn't be able to get to the standard needed for senior intercounty anymore. And some people find that hard to deal with. I made a decision, and I'm a stubborn person. Anybody that knows me knows them. When I say something, I more than likely go through with it, you know. So I came to that realization that my body just isn't able to do it anymore. Mentally, I was fine. Mentally, I'm as competitive as ever. Like, I play you in any sport, I want to beat you, no matter what. I'm very competitive that way. But physically, I just wasn't able to put my body through it again. That's just the reality of it. And I came to that, and by saying that, I didn't want to be just there as a token gesture. Yeah, train the odd time, play an odd match here or there. But like, what about a guy that's maybe number 17, 18, 19, fully fit, fully raring to go, and I'm there kind of maybe playing because of my reputation or whatever, things that went before me.
And Shefflin sent you out, he said. So if the offer was, look, Joe, you do what you have to do to get your body right. I want you for 10 minutes, closing stages of games. Come on, do that for me. That would have been tempting, no?
No, because that's not my... It's not how I'm kind of wired, I suppose, in a way. It's not how I was, like, to put in that effort for 10 minutes. I want, like, I'm wired to play play as much as I can. That's just the way I was the whole way. And people say maybe, well, I don't know, is that kind of selfish or is that kind of not the right way to think about it? That's just the way I am.
Yeah.
So, if that was never an option anyway, it was never spoken about, but it's not something that I think I'd put in that hard work just for 5 or 10 minutes. It's
fair enough.
I'd like to think that if I put in that effort, that I give a bit more than that, and like, not that I wouldn't see myself being a sub and coming on as a thing. It's, I wanted to play like as much as I can, and if I'd rather if there was more fitter guys, I suppose, in a way, able for that 10 or 15 minutes than me, you know.
I always felt there was a lot of heat on you for obvious reasons as a player, attention. Burst on the scene, made the mistake of your life with that game against Cork, superstardom, young age, routinely, and I was guilty of it as well. When we talked about Galway, it was, how did Canning play? And, you know, either amazing and, geez, why can't the rest of them do a bit more? Or it was, oh, he was a bit quiet today and, geez, he was quiet the last day as well. And suddenly everyone's talking, where's Joe Canning? This is incessant chatter for a long time, a lot of pressure, a lot of heat. Has that all lifted now? Do you feel like a little more spring in your step, a little less on the mind since you've retired? Or maybe it didn't affect you all that much during your career in the first place. I don't know.
It did and it didn't. I'd often wonder how it affected other guys in Galway. I would have often probably thought, in a weird way, what do the lads think it is? Does it affect the boys? Are they thinking about, why is it all like always about Joe? Like, I never sought that out. Like, some days obviously things didn't go right for me and I got the fall, and that's fine. They didn't have to deal with that. And then when things went right, I got the plaudits as well, and maybe that didn't sit well with them more so than when we lost. Do you know?
Did you sense that?
Yeah. Of some players, yeah. Now that was before Micheál came in, probably more so than that.
What did he change?
I think he just changed the kind of the culture and the mentality of some. Like, he put his own stamp on certain things and got rid of a couple of players that probably maybe caused a bit of hassle behind the scenes that weren't really involved in the team, you know, at a time. And that had big influences. Like, it goes back to when Anthony kind of got booted out, you know. There was guys there that Micheál got rid of because of that, you know. So that kind of, I felt that time that, yeah, at that stage when we were in 12 and 15 and we lost, and kind of got the sense a little bit then. And even going back to, I suppose, when you talk about 12 and the thing about Henry and the comments and stuff, there were, like, I got a sense of some players that time that was my fault that we lost the replay because of the comments, you know. And fair enough if that's what they want to think, but
as literal as saying it to you, or just a vibe that you picked up on?
No, you kind of got that just vibe, you know. And fair enough if they thought like that, that's fair enough, but no, nobody really said it to me, and that could be just a paranoia thing as well, maybe.
Sure.
You know, when you think about these things go through your head, and it's mad what goes through your head. But definitely for a stage, I think there was that kind of a thing. So yeah, it kind of changed. I think as you got maybe a bit older, and maybe like Micheál definitely changed things. Yeah.
But like, no one could ever have accused you of being Billy Big Time and not working incredibly hard. Like you mentioned Shefflin there, I would think Shefflin and I would think work rate for all the genius. And equally with you, for all the genius, I would think work rate. And as you said yourself, you wanted to train. So you know, you couldn't, I don't know, were you conscious of that like maybe turning down interviews here and there, or turning down different public opportunities? I'd say you were at times a touch conscious of not wanting to be front and centre every 5 minutes.
Yeah, but like I turned down, I'd say I only done 20% of what I was supposed to do.
Sure.
And that's not being, like a lot of the stuff that was me in the media and stuff like that, and people thought I was in the media a lot. There was a lot more written about me than me talking about me.
Yeah.
Or doing stuff. Like, I've only been involved with a couple of brands over the last number of years, like Bord Gáis Energy and different brands. Like I surrounded myself with about 4 or 5 brands throughout my career. That was it. I wasn't doing one gig this week and another gig the next week for somebody else, and then another gig that felt like, as players are doing now. Like, so that perception was there that I was in the media a lot, when in fact, if I was in the media for everything I was asked to do, it would have been a completely different story. And I fell out with, like, not fell out, but like even the guys here in Bord Gáis Energy, like I had to tell them a lot of the time, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't, you know. Like I delayed as much stuff as I possibly could. Even going back to that interview with Vincent Hogan, back in 2017, like we done that interview, I think 3 or 4 weeks before that. And I actually thought it was going out that time. And then he thought, I realized it was the day before the semi-final. And like, I was like, oh.
Wow.
Like, that is not the right time for me.
Do you know what's so interesting? I remember we were doing like a Sunday paper review. We do it on the show from time to time. You're always welcome, by the way, now that you're in the media. And I remember people saying, God, isn't Canning, like, we love this from Canning. Wow, doing an interview the weekend of an All-Ireland semi-final. Fair play to him. So
Yeah. Well, that was done about 3 or 4 weeks before.
Right.
And I like, it wasn't supposed to come out. I didn't think it was coming out the semi-final. Okay. So it was probably done maybe. So yeah, I think it was like 5 weeks before, between the Leinster final back then and the semi-final. So I think I did it just after the Leinster final. So it could have been like 5 weeks before. And I was thinking, right, they're bringing it out this weekend coming.
Yeah.
But no, held off. And like, those kind of things have like, if we lost that semi-finals Tipperary, I'd be the biggest prick going.
Yeah.
Why was he doing the media this week? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, when me, I was involved, I don't think I ever went up for media with Galway. You know, if there was a GAA launch for the Leinster Championship, or a preview of the All-Ireland semi-final or final, do you know the way, like, you have the manager and 2 players, I was never put up for that. You know,
we noticed.
Yeah. So, and that was conscious. Like, I was asked a couple of times, and I was like, no, I don't. Like, I don't need it. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I had a very fraught relationship with media. Like, there's no getting away from that. Like, I suppose after 2012 and that thing with Henry, I didn't have a good relationship with a lot of the media, and ye probably understood that and got that vibe off me. Like, you know, I didn't trust a lot of, because of the way that interview was portrayed. Like going back to Henry saying a bit unsportsmanlike, but in the next, if you actually read that, the next line is, we need to be more like them. So I actually wanted to be like him.
Yes. That was a grudging compliment. Yeah.
It was a backhanded compliment in a way, but the way that was portrayed by certain journalists was that it was only the sportsmanlike thing that was. So I lost a lot of trust in the media that time, and wasn't as, you got very little out of me that was interesting, and that's why I found the one-on-one interviews with the likes of Vincent very appealing, because I kind of trusted him to do an interview, and I enjoyed the questions he asked differently rather than a kind of a PR day that there's loads of journalists there asking nearly the same question the whole time.
Sure.
Do you know?
Yeah. So, you know, you've given us a really interesting insight there to you're juggling a lot of things across the last 14 years, be it media and perceptions of me and perceptions outside the dressing room, inside the dressing room. That's before we even talk hurling. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot going on. So have you, with retirement now, have you found yourself a little less encumbered and a bit lighter, or has that surprised you? Has it made any difference at all to day-to-day life, really?
Well, I'm kind of half a journalist now, I'm like.
Yeah.
That's the crazy.
Look, they'll be screen grabbing you pretty soon. Don't worry.
That's the mad world we live in.
But have you felt less weighed down with Galway away from your life?
Yeah, for sure. Right. 100%. Like, obviously, I'm involved with the minors now and stuff like that, and getting involved with them wasn't a thing that I thought would. I thought it'd be an enjoyable thing and something. I didn't think I was going to get involved in management or training straight away, to be straight up about it. It wasn't a thing that I was thinking about. I wanted to get involved with our club and under 15, under 16. I was doing a bit of that with Johnny Kelly and Sean Tracy.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Off the ball.
And he also said to ask him about the Hummer golf buggy I saw him driving in Portugal.
Yeah, well, the Hummer golf buggy, it wasn't mine, it was a friend of mine's. And I rented his place, and that was his buggy to get about. So, yeah, it was interesting. I was trying to keep my head down at times, but it was a good thing. It was a little bit, yeah. Not sure what Roy Keane would have made of it.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
FBD Insurance knows this sound spells trouble for van drivers. But if you